Welcome to the world of tomorrow. You are about to take a journey out of this world into the world of the future.
The atomic age was born.
The world of tomorrow became the world of today,
bringing together all people in a new era of understanding.
Good sense requires that all of us prepare for any eventuality.
Imagine, if you can, an electronic brain operating at millionths of a second speed.
Electrical pulses transmitted with the speed of light.
Limitless power at man's command. On man's wisdom, on his firmness in the use of that power, depends now the future of his children and his children's children. But wisdom demands, too, that we take time to understand this force.
Combat Information Center is alert. Its radars probing the darkness, ready to give early warning of any unseen enemy.
But have no fear, we are monitoring the situation. Autobots, transform and roll out.
Here we are. So, man, you're loving the humidity and heat as much as I'm loving it, right?
So much.
Oh, man.
Actually, you know what's great, though? We had a drought here for most of the summer. I don't know if the Northeast had
It's been dry. It's been dryish up here, too, for sure.
So it's been thunderstorming and pouring almost every day for the last week and a half. And I love the storms, but man, do they bring out the juice.
Oh, and the bugs. And boy, I'm just like in a perpetual state of like low grade oily sweat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like there's like a sheen on my forehead at all times.
Just washing my face multiple times a day.
Oh my gosh.
It feels so nasty.
Yeah. For guys of a certain vintage and a certain weight class, this is not a fun season. Let me tell you.
I was made to live in Winterfell, not down here in Dixie.
Yeah. No, this is a struggle, man. This is a struggle. But anyway, do you want to know? I'm currently living in one of the boys' dorms right now.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That sounds fun.
Yeah, great fun. So we had an event, a water leak spill event in the upstairs of our house, which flooded the bathroom, flooded my son's room, and then it seeped into the flooring, and then through the flooring and into the ceiling of the master and the living room. And so we can't live there right now. And because we're, as everyone knows, I live and work at a boarding school. I currently live in a detached home on campus because I did my time in the dormitory. But now there's nowhere for us to go. But we can't be we can't be we can't be in our house because they're mitigating and doing all this stuff. And so we are currently.
And there were already concerns about mold in the old house, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's old, right?
It's a very old house. It's from the middle of the 19th century. That we at least the main portion of the house is quite old. So we can't be there. So we are currently living in not an apartment in the boys' dorms, but in the boys' dorm. So my wife and I have a double, a double occupancy room, which means 2 single beds. My son and daughter have rooms across the hall. They have single rooms. And of course, it's pretty Spartan. Let me tell you, I should take pictures and show you. And my other daughter is just living with a friend because she's like, I'm not doing this.
Did you put up any Bon Jovi posters or anything?
Well, there are some vintage posters we could put up there. But no, we are not going to decorate because we don't like being there. And of course, we have 2 very large dogs. One weighs 120 pounds, one weighs 135 pounds. Lovely things. We love the dogs, but it's me and Demi and the dogs in a room.
I can testify that those dogs are absolute units, man.
Yeah, they're large and
they bump into you and your knee goes out. Like,
oh yeah, that's right. So it's been unfun. So we have no idea how long we're going to be out of the house. Like none. It could be another week. It could be another 3 weeks. I have no idea. And the school's great, they're doing their thing and blah, blah, blah. But it is, of course, we have no kitchen. We have no living room. I mean, like we literally are living, like we don't even have a sink in the room. It's like, it's pretty Spartan.
But you do have the advantage, excuse me, I swallowed wrong. You do have the advantage of the on-campus cafeteria, right? That runs all summer or no?
No, it happened to coincide. So it's been open on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It is closed on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then it reopens on Monday. So yes, that has been a real lifesaver. But man, you just get used to it. And look, you've been to my home. It's certainly nothing fancy, but it's a house.
Yeah.
Like with bathrooms.
With all your stuff in it. Yeah.
In a shower, my stuff, a kitchen.
A refrigerator.
A refrigerator. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're going nuts. Of course, look, and it's one of those things, honestly, Steve, if it was just me and maybe the dogs, fine. I'll camp out. Yeah. I don't care, right? And this
I live in a shoebox, dude. I mean, I get it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's like I'm always worried about my wife. I'm always worried about my kids. I'm worried about just these basic things. I have to walk the dogs like 5 times a day now because I can't just stick them in the backyard and let them run around and chase golf balls. So, yeah, wah, as they would say.
Wait, did you mention the most important part?
I don't know.
You don't have air conditioning.
Right. And we are in a hot spell. So, yeah. So, just this morning, we got them to take one of the window units from the house and they put it in our bedroom at the very least. So the dogs and my wife, it can sleep. Right. That's exactly right. But it's not fun. Not at all. I don't know how much better it would be if it were November. I wouldn't be sweating as much. But
the kids live in these dorms, right, during the school year.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, they're fine. I mean, again, from that standpoint. But remember, when the kids are here, when the students are here, 3 meals a day.
Yeah,
and
the weather's gorgeous.
Exactly. The fall, really until December, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. And then you've got heat in there, which is fine. But it's the air conditioning thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, and honestly, the hardest part. Well, I don't know if it's a difficult part is I have no idea how long we're going to be here.
Yes.
None.
Yep.
And in a week from Saturday, I take my group of kids to Oxford.
Right.
So I'm going to have to leave my wife and dogs and one of my children here.
Indeterminacy is its own form of torture.
I'm telling you, it really is. No, that's exactly right.
Just not being able to know what the heck comes next, when the other shoe is going to drop.
And of course, I'm dealing with my own anxiety about the situation, but my wife has anxiety about the situation. My kids have anxiety about the poor dogs are so out of sorts. And so I have second order anxiety.
The dogs picked up smoking again, didn't they?
Smart dogs. I mean, look, if you're going to smoke.
Speaking of that, where's my nicotine?
Dogs know. If you're going to smoke, now's the time. Because, So, and of course, they don't spend a lot of time with other people. So, they're all kind of weirded out by this, but they're getting more accustomed to having people around and all that nice stuff. So, cheers. Salute. Clink.
I have the wrong side. Wait. My handle's on the wrong side.
Yeah. Clink.
Clink.
All right, there it is. All right. Shout out to Hillary.
Yeah. Hill dog.
All right. So look, as you know, one of the books that I have the privilege of teaching each year is Homer's Odyssey. And in addition to teaching it to my freshmen, this past spring, I was able to teach it to a group of adults, seasoned learners online. And so I really love Homer, as you might imagine. I really love the book. And so it has been with some degree of, it's like a combination of anticipation and anxiety about the release of Christopher Nolan's film, which was released a few days ago. And, I didn't know what to think. Of course, I've been following the news. We monitor the situation. It's what we do, of all the sort of the casting questions and the translation that it was based on and all these kinds of things. So I decided that I was not going to keep my precious pants on, and I was going to put on, so to speak. I don't know. Does that work? Anyway, I took my precious pants off and I put
There's
on
got to be a better way you can say that, Tobias.
So anyway, yeah, there are dozens of us.
You know what you do? You get yourself a tape recorder and you walk around all day and just record yourself and then listen.
But I'm refusing to shower with my jeans on, just so you know.
There are dozens of us, Kale.
Because you know how much I love denim. So
yes, jorts are your favorite thing.
Yes, really all forms,
especially
of
the
denim.
cutoff. The cutoffs
are the best. So anyway, so the movie was released late last week, I believe.
Yeah, Thursday or Friday of last week.
Yeah, Thursday or Friday. And so I was kind of following it on X, what are people saying? And some people are sort of doubling down on, oh, it's woke garbage. And then a couple of people are like, no, actually, it's pretty good. Like Pajot came out and sort of said, no, it's kind of a subversive masterpiece. And so I'm like, all right, look, I got to go see this. I've got, there's no way that I'm not going to go see this.
Yeah, there's no way.
Right. So my son and I went yesterday to see it at the 11:15 showing. And it was hilarious. In the morning.
Show?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, in the morning. Because me, I mean, Steve.
The matinees are cheaper.
Yeah, it's like $6.75 was amazing.
And you go to bed at like 3 in the afternoon.
Well, I was just gonna say, right. I mean, I'm right there with the retirees. And funnily enough, it is me, Jack, and the rest of the people in the theater, and it's not packed, but there's a decent amount of people. And I was the second youngest person in that theater. My son
really
was the youngest person in that theater. It was filled with boomer retirees. So,
that is interesting.
It was very funny. Yeah. So, but anyway, so my whole frame of mind going into this movie is I'm like, look, I could stand on business and be like, Mr. Persnickety Pants about this. But I decided going in, I'm like, Kale, don't be that guy. You like Christopher Nolan films. You know that a film adaptation of a movie always involves interpretation. It's not a book report. So just go in and try to enjoy the film.
Beginner's mind, right? Isn't that the Zen concept?
Well, yeah, like I really did. And so anyway, I went in and watched the movie. Rookie mistake. It's been so long since I've been in the theater, but it's like a 2 hour and 37 minute
It's actually
film.
3 hours and 5 minutes, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
So it's 3 hours and 5 minutes. Well, I am like treating myself. So I get like a super large tub of popcorn and I get a Coke that's like bigger than my head. Right. And so I'm just like, slurp,
that was
slurp.
a critical errr.
Man, an hour and 15 minutes in, it's like, I must have colon cancer because I had to go to the bathroom so bad that I waited until the Hades scene and I got to see Sign On and we could talk about Sign On.
Yeah.
I got to see Tiresias and I'm
Sign
like,
On can sign off as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And then I bolted out, took the quickest leak I could, got back in time. So, but I would say sort of my initial take is
your
that,
colon cancer comment, I thought it was going to take longer, but
no, I evacuated like nobody's business. I forced,
you evacuated like the guys in Troy.
That's right.
Coming out of the horse.
That's right. So I evacuated as quickly as I possibly could, ran back. And so I only missed about 2.5 minutes. Jack caught me up. It was fine. And so I enjoyed the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's my first take. But as luck would have it, I was texting you as I was walking into the theater, like Jack and I are going in, we're going to do it. And you're like, you know what? What the heck? I'm going to go this afternoon. Or evening. So you saw it.
Yeah, I ended up going last night because I was like, I want to be able to talk about this with you. And so what's really interesting to me is, first of all, we haven't had this conversation at all. We've avoided having it.
Yeah.
I did post something about it last night that kind of blew up a little bit, but it was generic. But so what I love about this is I'm coming to this from the completely opposite side from you, because you teach the book.
Yeah.
I've never even read it because in high school, for whatever reason, it just wasn't assigned. And it's not exactly the light reading that you pick up as a married man with kids when you're busy. And
no.
And so I've just never gotten around to it. I wanted to take your course earlier this year, but I was working in the evenings. And so it just never worked out. But, so I went in kind of blind with no real expectations. And I knew some of the controversies around it. I avoided most of the reviews, positive or negative. I watched like the first minute or so of Pajot's thing, and then I was like, you know, I don't want to know what he thinks. I want to experience this as a neophyte for myself going in. I have the vague sort of cultural memes and references, and that's what I know about this story, but I don't know who all the characters are. I don't know like what to expect will happen next.
How much of the general story do you think you got?
Well, you know what's funny is I found that I knew a number of pieces of the story without knowing that they were from the Odyssey. Like I didn't know that the sirens were from the Odyssey. I didn't know that the Trojan horse, story was really from the Odyssey. I was aware of these as sort of tropes and stories that exist.
Put a pin on the Trojan horse part of the story.
Yeah, because I know it's in more than just
because I think that's going to be part of my larger thing. But
is it all? It's more from the Aeneid, or
it's more like the way that it's rendered in Nolan's Odyssey. It really is more lifted from the Aeneid.
Okay.
But it's alluded to, it's referenced, it's talked a little bit about in the Odyssey. But you really get the sort of the full rundown that we kind of know as the sacking of Troy from Virgil's Aeneid, which is written quite a bit later historically.
And is a Roman take on Homer, right?
Correct. Right. Yeah. And of course, if you know, just again for the audience's sake, not to become Mr. Pedantic guy, but sorry in advance, I'm probably going to sound like that today. The origin story that the Romans tell about themselves is that Aeneas is a Trojan. He's one of the Trojan princes and knights. And when the Greeks pop out of the Trojan horse, he is storming in to go defend his city from the inside. And which goddess? Oh, man. One of the goddesses appears to him and says, "This is not your fight. You're going to lose. We have a different plan for you. Your plan is to leave, grab your son, grab the household gods, grab your wife,
hide your kids, hide your wife,
leave, and you're going to found a new city." So
wouldn't it be nice if the gods did that?
I was thinking of us. Yes, I know. Yeah. Hey, Steve, by the way, this is what you need to do. I would take that like in a country
just run
minute.
with it. Run with it.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes.
Just tell me somebody has some idea of what's going on.
Like,
I
talk
sure
to my
don't.
face. Talk in my face. I will follow it like every jot and tittle. Yeah, I'm all in. Yeah, give it to me. So the Romans understand themselves as being part of the losers in the Trojan War, who become the ultimate winners in the founding of New Troy or Rome, right? So at any rate, so the Romans connect themselves imaginatively to the Trojan War. So you can see the Trojan War as this sort of originary story that all these various peoples take their cue from. So that's something that you're familiar with. Again, not having done a deep dive into the story itself too.
So I went in without really having any expectations. I was aware of the casting controversies. I also, though, I looked up and I don't think a lot of people realize this. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences implemented new guidelines for Oscar nominees in 2024.
Yeah.
And Oppenheimer by Christopher Nolan was the first film to win Best Picture under the new standards, which require either a DEI cast or a DEI crew, among other things. I mean, they're more specific. It's from people from underrepresented communities and all this kind of stuff, right? But so if you want to win an Academy Award for a film that you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into, you've got to play this stupid woke game, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I kind of brought that with me going into it, I know the casting isn't something I'm going to necessarily love.
Yeah.
But I also know that he's playing with constraints, and I had seen Pajot saying that he's doing some subversive things within those constraints. And I was like, cool. You know what? Bias, I'm going to leave it by the wayside.
Yeah.
Just going to go have an experience.
Very similar to my own sort of mental calculus going in. Like I understand constraints. Every artist has to deal with constraints, and as stupid as I think those particular constraints are, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. I I will say, however, that I thought it was a failure. Especially the Elliot Page stuff. I thought it was a failure, but I get what he was doing, and I get what Pajot was kind of saying about a kind of a form of subversion. But anyway, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. So I don't know. It was interesting to go in. I don't know if I would even say low expectations. It was just neutral. I was like, I don't know what this is going to be like. I'm not excited about it. I'm seeing a 10 p.m. show, and this thing runs for 27 years. So I'm getting to bed late, which I normally do anyway. So I wasn't too worried about that. But I just wasn't super enthused. And, I saw it by myself. And so I was really surprised to find that it was incredibly compelling. The audience, by the way, was the exact opposite of yours. It was almost all young men.
Yeah.
Like high school, college-age young men. Yeah. And I'm talking multiple demographics. There were white kids sitting next to me. There were black kids sitting right in front of me. There were Hispanic dudes speaking Spanish next to me. Like multiple cultures, young men coming to see this thing that, if they're anything like me, they probably weren't taught this in school. So it's like, what's the cachet here? Is it just Nolan's name attached to it? Is it an action film? I've been to other movies recently where I've seen young people show up. They paid for tickets, they bought concessions, and then they leave 30 minutes in because they're like, this is a dumb movie.
Wow.
Like I saw The Death of Robin Hood last month. Yeah. And I saw people just get up and walk out. And it wasn't a terrible movie. It just wasn't great. But I was like, wow, if I pay, $16 for a ticket, I'm sticking around.
Yeah, almost. I mean, I can count on one hand the times that I've left the theater,
and I didn't see anybody looking at their phones.
Right.
There was a kid in front of me who was vaping, and it was coming up in clouds in the projector light because I was in the top row.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's annoying.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I don't know, some people clapped at the end.
Yeah.
Like it was an interesting audience experience, and that demographic variety told me that there's something going on here that's important, because he's reaching a demographic that might not find these themes appealing, might not ever study this, might not have exposure to the classics, and they're showing up for it. And
likely not. I mean, what was interesting to me about one of your tweets, either last night or today, is that you sort of offhandedly said something like, because I had a
public school education,
Yeah, and people are like losing their minds over that. I'm like, you weren't even being mean about it. You just being like, I just
said it was one of the deficiencies of a public school education is I didn't get all the great books, and I watched my kids do Aristotle and Plato and Dostoevsky and and Homer and all this, and I was like, that's really cool that you're studying this and I didn't get to, and I felt at a disadvantage, not having that. Yeah. But at any rate, so. For me, not really, like, I know it's a journey story. I know it's a misadventure story. I know that it's a blend of kind of mythology and history. I know all those things, but I didn't really realize that the heart of the story is really about a man trying to find his way home to what he loves the most, and everything's getting in his way. And that has so much personal resonance for me right now.
Yeah.
But it's also just the whole, like, what the crap are the gods doing?
Yeah.
Like, why are they messing with us constantly? Like, why are they throwing stuff in our way? Who do I have to, to kiss up to get a break? Like, there were some really deep themes in there that got to me. And one of the lines that I absolutely loved, if I can pull it up, is, the scene with the sirens. And when he says, and people don't like the writing, but I thought this was a great line. When he was asked what the song was about, he said, "It told you what you most want is what you can't have, and what you most can't have is what you already had and lost."
Wow.
And that is such an incredible line.
Yeah, that's good. I could, as soon as you framed that phrase, I immediately thought of you. You know?
Because that was. Yeah. Well, and it was funny because, like, I'm a very emotional person. I cry easily. I'm very sentimental about, scenes in movies that are touching or whatever. I never had that during the movie, but I just kind of went out and sat in my car and was like, I felt like I got out of church.
Yeah.
Like it was a spiritual kind of experience because of what the themes were and what was being grappled with. And then I also found it really, really interesting that Nolan made a choice to have everybody, including the British actors, have an American accent.
Yeah.
Like nobody in that film, except for maybe one of the guys on his crew who was very kind of Cockney sounding. Like nobody had
that one guy,
a British accent.
Yeah, that's right.
And the semantics were very idiomatic. Like Telemachus is saying mom and dad, not mother and father.
Yeah.
And for people, at least of our generation, who grew up on British period pieces where the language is very formal and, sometimes it's even a little bit Shakespearean. And it's like, this was very like vulgar in the old sense of the term. It was the common language.
Yeah.
And it was the common language that is currently sort of the unifying language of the world, which is American English.
Yeah, American patois.
And that was
good.
really, really interesting to me because I was like, that was definitely a calculated choice, especially because Nolan himself is a Brit.
Exactly.
Like what was driving that thought? So those are kind of the basic observations that I took away from it. But I mean, we can go from that.
Yeah. So I thought, let's talk casting just for a second.
Sure.
I thought that my favorite character and casting choice is Anne Hathaway as Penelope. I thought she was absolutely stunning and perfect.
What do you think about the people who were saying that she had this whole feminist bent to her? There were like little things, but I don't think.
One moment, she's complaining to Telemachus, her son, Odysseus's child, heir, is something like, well, I'm gonna take over Ithaca, and I'll make myself the king and all this sort of stuff. And she's basically like, you don't get it, right? And at one point she says something like, and I've been here for almost 20 years, and God forbid they let me run this show, or something along those lines. And then very quickly after that she says, because he kind of pushes back, and she says,
what do you want? And she goes, I just want Odysseus.
My husband. I just want Odysseus.
Right. And the thing was, the feeling that I got from that scene was not that. I mean, you could read it that way, but it was more the frustration of, I have been left in this position of holding being in charge, but not being in charge.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm frustrated by it.
So I thought that was fine. Like I was like, I made a little mental note. I know that people were going to, prick up their eyebrow at that moment. But I thought in the context, I thought that was fine. But I just thought her characterization was excellent. She's beautiful.
Sure. She's regal.
Exactly. You're right. And she's the kind of woman that you would leave Calypso for.
Right.
Right. Because the whole, again, this is different from the book is different from the film, but in the book, he has a decision to make. He can stay on Calypso's island and, look, as I tell my kids all the time, she's a beautiful goddess who's really into you, is going to make you immortal. You live on Cabo and you get to eat, nectar and ambrosia and
you don't age.
Right? So
and neither does she.
Right. So think about a perpetual vacation in Cabo in which everything is taken care of, including a goddess who's got the hots for you and will have the hots for you forever, right?
Sounds pretty good.
It sounds good, right? No, but that's exactly right. So in the book, the whole point is that Odysseus makes a decision at that point. Penelope and my name and my household are the locus of my meaning. And therefore I choose that. And even though in choosing that, I'm choosing suffering, and not just like a hangnail suffering, like real suffering. And I thought they did a good job of that.
I thought so too. And Charlize Theron is a creepy person.
Yes.
But I thought she really did a good job with the role.
Yeah.
She's
especially
a very attractive woman who I have come to a point, because I know enough about her, that I stopped finding her attractive for a long time.
I know.
But I thought she was beautiful in this movie. She was attractive again. She really embodied the character well.
So she and Penelope were the two people, just from like a personal affect, sold it to me. Like I bought that Charlize Theron was a goddess. right? I bought that Anne Hathaway as Penelope was the kind of woman that you leave. And it's not just because she's pretty. I mean, she is, but
there's no real guile in her. Like, she's not malicious in the way in the portrayal on the screen.
Right.
There's some selfishness, but there's no intended harm.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get that feeling of like, oh, she's the hot chick who's really just trying to drug you and keep you forever.
No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, from a casting standpoint, those two were excellent. Anne Hathaway's my number one. I think she was perfect for Penelope. What do you think of Damon as?
I liked
Odysseus?
him, but I've always liked him as an actor.
Yeah. Okay.
And I found him believable. I found him relatable. There's something in him that I've always liked, even though I know that we would argue nonstop in real life.
Yeah.
Ever since I first saw him in a movie, but I've also seen interviews with him. He's a really smart guy.
Yeah.
He's really intuitive. He's a great storyteller. He's always got stories about other actors that he's met that are extremely compelling.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have a bias because I already like him.
Yeah. So again, so what I'm constantly doing here with myself is I'm trying to put book Kale on the side. And I'm trying to do my best to treat it as a thing unto itself.
Right. So I don't know Odysseus like you know him. And that's why I don't know what the mismatch is.
Yeah. So again, but it's hard, right? Because I'm constantly doing this act of like cordoning off things and like bracketing things and that sort of stuff. I thought he was fine.
He was noble, I thought.
Yeah.
And he was believably like the virtuous leader.
Yeah.
But I don't know who he's supposed to be.
Yeah, right. And so in the book, in the poem, he's a trickster figure. He's the best liar in the world. He is conniving. He is funny. He is always lying and getting his way by in the Greek word is mentis, right? He's got this quality of mind. Like, he's a great warrior physically. Like, he can hold his own on that level. He's the real deal. But what separates him from every other hero in Homer's world is that he's smart and clever and not afraid to, bend and twist and pretend in order to get what he wants. And that is precisely the quality in the book that Athena loves about him so much.
Right,
and
because she's the goddess of wisdom, so they're kind of besties.
Right.
Okay.
And she just thinks, oh, you're such a rake. I love you. Like, you're such a bad, like, you're so bad. Like, you're so naughty. I love you. That kind of thing. And significantly, the reason why the relationship between Penelope and Odysseus is divine-like is that they share this quality of mind, that they're both again, impressive physical specimens, but they
wait, Odysseus and who?
Penelope.
Okay.
They're both impressive physical specimens. They're beautiful people. They're warriors, and she's beautiful and all that sort of stuff. But they're crafty and smart. And what I think the movie did an incredible job with was disabusing people who think that the situation she finds herself in Ithaca at home with these 50 plus suitors is anything but incredibly dangerous. And so I think the film did a fantastic job of showing, like, it's not just kind of an annoying situation, right? She knows that Telemachus is going to get killed eventually, and she's going to get taken. And it's not going to be like, hey, would you like to come with me? No, she's going to be taken.
Yeah.
Right.
And the only thing really stopping that is the competition for that slot, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And that she's crafty enough to design this delay. Right. So again, that's one of the parts of the film that they kind of downplayed. And again, you have to make decisions. So again, I get the creative impetus, but Damon's Odysseus was not merely as playful and witty and fun and conniving as it is in the book.
Yeah, okay.
But in terms of the film, he's the guy who longs to go home. So I think it works in terms of the film.
Do you think this is more a function of how his character was written? I mean, is there an actor that you would have preferred to see in that role because you feel like he embodies that more?
Great question. I think it's exactly that. I think it's because the way that Nolan wrote the character. Right. In other words, Nolan is telling a version of the Odyssey, and that's okay.
A post-war version of the Odyssey.
Well, I
to go
do,
back to one of our common themes.
Yeah, I do in fact think that's, interestingly enough, Emily Wilson, the translator, the wokish translator of the Odyssey, herself pointed this out when she was interviewed about the film. She says, Odysseus is not motivated by guilt over what he's done,
but glory. That's what I think she said, right? Yeah,
kleos. Exactly, and she's exactly right. So I gave her props. I gave her the retweet. I said, "Can't believe it," but I'm agreeing with Emily Wilson.
Probably
here.
Because she wants him to be that, so she can hate him for it, right?
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. And so part of Nolan making a relatable character to a 2026 audience is to strip away the guilt, the kleos motivation, and really build up the guilt motivation.
Right. So, but you think there's nobody that came to mind that you were like,
no,
man,
not really. No, I mean, I do think it was a function. Look, I mean, this is exactly what they did with Aragorn in the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings trilogy. Because if you read the Tolkien, Aragorn is not a tortured king. He's just prudent, right? Like, he's not sitting there like, oh, I don't know if I should be king. Like,
he's
like,
a straight shooter.
There's no angst in Aragorn. So, but again, what does a modern audience, a modern film-going audience want?
Well, that raises a really interesting question, and I want to come back to the casting to keep going with you. But like the whole
keep going.
What makes a believable character, if you're in a world where certain virtues are gone? Like, I always hated what Peter Jackson did to Faramir.
Yeah, keep going. Go ahead, say it.
Because, there's that line in The Lord of the Rings in the books where he's like, I would no sooner pick up the ring if I found it lying on the side of the road, but then he's like subjected to the same corrupting tendencies as Boromir in the movies. And I'm like, no, that's not him.
Yeah,
like,
it's not
they
him.
were supposed to be a contrast. They're brothers who are kind of opposite sides of how you should approach something.
Right.
And so I don't know. I don't know when to make the cutoff between modern audiences won't find a character's motivation believable because it feels alien to them, because it comes from a different time, a different culture. I am inclined to say, well, the audience needs to just catch up. They need to suspend their disbelief and actually see what virtue looks like in action, even if it's uncommon now.
Right. So again, if you go in expecting a book report, a filmed version of the book, you're going to be disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that that's a naive way to go in to see a film.
It doesn't help, by the way, that Project Hail Mary was the best book to film adaptation I've ever seen. Like, it was very faithful.
Right.
And it came out this year. It was the other big film of the year. So it's like, people probably still have that kind of thing in their mind. You're looking for something.
It's okay. I'll find it later.
Okay.
So right. But Project Hail Mary, a couple of things. Project Hail Mary is a novel. It's basically contemporary, right? It was written in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, it was written probably 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, right. So you're already dealing with a social imaginary that is relatable, right? When you're dealing with something like Homer, you're having to do all of this translation work. And
you're dealing with a mythological subject.
Yeah, that's right.
That's already subject to interpretation.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. And that Homer's Odyssey is also a version of the Trojan War. Right. And I think people forget that.
Because Homer's version comes hundreds of years after it actually happens, right?
Yeah, quite a bit. And remember, the way that those stories were told, we have to posit that there would have been hundreds, if not thousands, of versions of the Trojan War story, or episodes from the Trojan War that were told, right? What survived, and I think there's a kind of Lindy effect quality to this, but what survived was the best version of that story, which happened to be Homer's, right? You kind of get the idea, right? It'd be like if you lined up 50 of us and said, okay, tell a story about World War II, right? We could all tell versions of that story. It's obviously this super large thing, and we would have to make our own creative decisions on what angle to tell it and from whose perspective and all those kinds of things.
What's a little interesting tangential fun fact to this that I only just found out recently is, with a more contemporary myth, Dracula, like vampires being burned by sunlight, comes out of the 1932 film Nosferatu. It did not exist.
It's not in the thing,
in vampire lore before that. It was a stylistic decision that they made, a plot decision that they made, and now everybody thinks of vampires as though they can't go out in the sunlight. But that didn't exist in the legends of old. And so it's interesting how these accretions come in and then they become accepted as canon.
Yeah, right. And so that's just an interesting. So I think it's important to remember that Homer didn't even create the Trojan War story. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, in other words, it's a version of it. And so you can't get yourself too worked up about
being faithful to something that was ultimately included its own novelties and innovations. Yeah.
Right. I think.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
About specifically, it's anachronistic. I'm jumping to the very end of the film. There was a line that I caught that I wondered if it was from the thing. And it's where Odysseus says something about, Penelope asks him, why are they only going to sing the story? And he says, because, it's for the continuation of the story until people learn how to write again, for those who can't write.
Yeah.
Was that something that...
Yeah, that's not in it.
I wonder what the purpose of that line was. You caught that line, right?
I know 100% I caught it. I need to think about this, but I feel like it was a wink to the audience by Nolan in some sense about the controversies of
literacy.
Yeah,
that was what I thought too.
Yeah.
But my first thought was the dialogue from Plato, where he's talking to Phaedrus about like being concerned about writing being the thing that makes people forget how to do the oral tradition.
That's right.
And so it was kind of an inversion of that is what it felt like to me.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. So I do think that was like the wink at the end, the nod toward all these kinds of things. So maybe this is a good time to talk about it. We already talked about the insertion of the sack of Troy as material not present in Homer's Odyssey, but present in Virgil's Aeneid, which is...
Where does the Odyssey actually begin in the timeline of what we got?
Okay. So this is interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the Odyssey begins with a conversation on Olympus between the gods. And Athena says to her dad, Zeus, why it's time for us to let Odysseus get back home. And Zeus is like, okay, fine. But he kind of ticked off my brother Poseidon, but okay, fine. So she says, all right, what I'm going to do, is I'm going to go down to Ithaca and I am going to rouse Telemachus because he's in a bad way down there and he needs to remember who he really is, the son of the great Odysseus, and he needs to prepare himself for his father's return. So she zaps on down, gets him all riled up. He then goes to talk to Menelaus, which is in the movie.
Right.
And meanwhile, she goes to Calypso. Well, actually, Hermes goes to Calypso and says, okay, you got to let him go. She says, fine. So we don't really meet Odysseus until book 5. So you're like 4 chapters into the book before you even meet Odysseus. You hear about him.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So then
when he shows up, what's he doing?
He comes back as a beggar.
So we're starting at the end of the story in the book.
Yeah.
And then is it all through memory that it comes back, or
so he travels. So he leaves Calypso's island. Poseidon smashes his raft that he makes in the book. It's so cool because he crafts this like amazing raft. He doesn't just lash together the ruins of his old boat, but find. And he is afloat for like 18 days on the water in the storm. And he makes it onto this island of the Phaeacians. And there, Odysseus is taken up by a young princess, brought to the palace. And then from books, I think it's 9 through 12, they're basically like, who are you? Like, where are you from? And there's all these rules of xenia where you feed somebody first and then you ask them who they are and why they're here. And so he winds up telling his whole story. So we get the story about the Cyclops and the story about the Sirens and the story about Scylla and Charybdis.
But he's telling it almost like a bard, not like the main character.
Exactly.
Okay.
So he's the poet hero who tells the people. And of course, they're hearing the story and they're like, this guy is crazy. The gods hate him. We've got to get him out of here, right? That's kind of the idea. That's kind of the idea. So all of the fantastical elements of the story are actually told by Odysseus himself. And there's some reason to think that maybe some of these things are embellished. Maybe some of these things are taller tales. But at any rate...
Well, particularly, I would imagine, because he's established as a character who is mendacious.
Yes, and crafty.
Right.
And he's the best liar in the land. Right. Which, again, he's connected to a poet who tells fictional stories. So there's all these really cool layers. Well, again, all of that is really cut out of the film.
And interestingly, it's weird that Athena is really the only one of the gods we actually see.
And we don't get this. We get to see this very like wispy, waifish.
Yeah.
There's
nothing about her that feels Athenian.
No. Yeah.
But it's
that was weird because it's like whiff.
Yeah, well, every time Zendaya is in something, it's a casting whiff, in my opinion. She just has no charisma. I don't understand it.
I know.
But whatever. What was weird, though, is that it's demythologized, but it is not disenchanted.
Yes, good. That's
there's very much enchantment and magic and mystery and wonder in this world, but the gods are all off camera in a way that's very strange.
Entirely off camera.
Yeah.
Entirely.
And I know that's a choice, but it's like, yeah.
Well, look, so if you remember back in 2004, the movie Troy came out, and they basically made the same decision, except for Achilles' mother, Thetis, at the beginning. But anyway, the point is that, I mean, how do you integrate the gods into a movie?
No, stylistically, it's difficult.
It's hard.
Does it become an Avengers movie?
Well, that's how I would do it.
Yeah.
I would, in fact, our Avengers, our Marvel MCU, those are essentially Greek gods.
Yeah, it's a pantheon of sorts.
Right. And that's how they function. It's interestingly enough, like in the comic books especially, they talk like Greek gods.
Well, Thor particularly.
Yeah, but like, if you read Homer and you listen to the speeches of the gods and the way that they talk with one another, they all sound like Thor.
Well, and by the way, this just popped into my head.
Yeah.
The first, or maybe the first and second Thor movies were directed by Kenneth Branagh.
Really?
Yeah. They took the world's best Shakespearean actor.
But I have to
arguably.
I have to chew on that. That's really interesting.
And he made those movies and nobody watched them. And then they started making Thor funny, and they started making him,
relatable.
The Taika Waititi character. I'm saying his name wrong. Is it Taika? Taika Waititi. I think that's his name.
I don't know.
He's the New Zealand director. Funny guy, like, made Hunt for the Wilder People, made What We Do in the Shadows. Like, he made a bunch of funny movies, and then he made Thor Ragnarok, and I really liked it. A lot of people hated it. I thought it was a fun movie that made Thor interesting. I never liked Thor as a comic book character growing up. I was just never into it.
I didn't know that.
Well, because it's weird. Like, why are we just throwing this random god that speaks archaically in with a bunch of people that have superpowers because of gamma radiation and radioactive spiders?
I kind of like that stuff, but that's
funny.
I
mean, to each their own. It's whatever. But I mean, it's just this interesting thing where, like, here again, Nolan doesn't show the gods as gods. He flattens the dialogue and makes it more relatable. Like, I feel like they kind of did that same thing where you have Branagh's Thor and then you have the rest of the Thor. And it's like they made a conscious choice to make him more relatable, more modern, more all this stuff. And I don't know if that's analogous, but it just popped into my head.
Well, it's interesting. The way that they had Athena in the film, she's almost like a Marian apparition or something. She's kind of like only certain people can see her, and which is sort of true, but I thought that was a real whiff. But fine. But again, you have to make these kind of creative choices.
Sure.
So the reason why I bring up the Aeneid, though, is and the retelling of the Trojan myth through the lens of Rome and the Roman mythology and Roman mythos is, you could make the same arguments against Virgil. And I want to be careful here because I'm not saying that Christopher Nolan is Virgil, but just in terms of a model, what Virgil does is that he takes existing myths and reworks them for a contemporary audience. And I think that is a kind of model for how we might conceive of what Nolan is trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I said on X last night, I said, Christopher Nolan's Odyssey is not woke. And I don't think it is.
It didn't feel woke.
It didn't, but it's certainly liberal. And I mean it liberal in that kind of Enlightenment sense of capital L liberalism. I'm not talking about politics as such here, right? In the kind of American register of liberal and conservative. I'm not talking about it that way. But the presuppositions of the film are speaking to a liberal audience. And for all of the banter about post-liberalism and all this kind of stuff, that we've been privy to for the past couple of years in the United States, we're all liberal. And, you have conservative liberals and you have progressive liberals, but we're all liberal. I know that's going to trigger some people, but
look, the line conservatism is just liberalism in slow motion. I mean,
yeah. And I think that is exactly right, by the way.
Yeah.
It just means you're trying to slow it down, whatever it is, right? So it's not a woke film, but so then you start asking yourself the question: well, what is Nolan doing? Like, why is he telling this story? Because he's telling his version of the Odyssey, which you're perfectly allowed to do. Like, this is like, it's the same thing. It's like, think of somebody like Shakespeare, and again, people are like, I'm not saying that Christopher Nolan is Shakespeare, but if there's anybody playing in the modern storytelling world...
But we have to be able to make these comparisons when you're doing a major storyteller on a grand scale.
Right.
In modernity, do we have any Shakespeares? Probably not. but we have these cinematic masters.
Right.
Nolan is widely considered the best. I think he's overrated, but that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And it's funny. I feel the same. I like some of his stuff a lot, and then some of the stuff I'm just like, so we can get back to Nolan in just a second, but so I lost my train of thought. We were talking about Nolan. Oh,
Shakespeare.
So think of something like Julius Caesar, Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. It's probably among the 1, 2, or 3 most read Shakespeare plays, still.
Who doesn't know Friends, Romans, Countrymen?
Right. Now, many people's conceptions of Julius Caesar are not so much the real Julius Caesar, but they're Shakespeare's reimagined version of a potential tyrant that he's telling originally to an Elizabethan audience. And
the noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it was so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously has Caesar answered it.
You just got that. That's just so good. So well done, by the way.
Thanks.
And I think it's 1599. In fact, it's the play that this is a fun fact. So Shakespeare, for a long time, rented space at the Rose Theatre in London proper.
Mm-hmm.
And there was like issues with it, and the city was kind of putting their clamps on it, and the censors were working. And so in the middle of a cold, I think January night, maybe a December night, he and his acting troupe, this is just a true story, disassemble the entire theater and walk it across the Thames and rebuild it on the other side of the river, so that it is technically outside of the city limits, so they could get away with certain things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get away with. So it's a cool story.
That would be a cool movie. Somebody needs to make that movie.
No, I totally agree. So at any rate, so they reconstituted as the Globe Theater, and the show that they open up the new Globe Theater with, he writes Julius Caesar. And it was a blockbuster. Like, it was like right away. It was like, it was the real deal. Okay. So, is that the real Julius Caesar? No, actually. So what is Shakespeare doing with it? Well, he's a great student of Plutarch, and Plutarch and Plutarch's Lives has this rendition of Caesar and all of that. And so Shakespeare's Caesar is really his reinterpretation of Plutarch's interpretation of Julius Caesar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why is he doing this? Well, and I learned this from someone. I'll tell you the story right now. If you and I go out right now and film a movie that's set in 2026, let's say it's a medium-sized film. We're doing it through the studio system, like the whole thing. It's probably going to cost us about $100 million to make. As soon as you set it a decade earlier, or 2 decades earlier, or a century earlier, you double your budget. So,
because you've got to recreate a historical period.
Correct. It has to work. It has to write. So the first question you always have to ask yourself is, why am I telling this story that is going to, in essence, double my budget? So I found what I was looking for. This is from one of my favorite books that taught me about screenwriting, but also just about story in general. And it's called Story by Robert McKee. And this is what he says about historical drama. History is an inexhaustible source of story material and embraces every type of story imaginable. The treasure chest of history, however, is sealed with this warning: what is past must be present. A screenwriter isn't a poet hoping to be discovered after he's dead. He must find an audience today. Therefore, the best use of history and the only legitimate excuse to set a film in the past and thereby add untold millions to the budget is anachronism. To use the past as a clear glass through which you show us the present. Many contemporary, and I'm going to, if you mind, can I keep going?
No, keep going, yeah.
Many contemporary antagonisms are so distressing or loaded with controversy that it's difficult to dramatize them in a present-day setting without alienating the audience. Such dilemmas are often best viewed at a safe distance in time. So why does Shakespeare write a play about Julius Caesar? Sure, you could say, well, Caesar's kind of an interesting character. But how do you talk about dictatorship kingship, authority, conspiracy in Elizabethan London. Because if you do that, you're going to get killed, actually. Like, you're going to get censored and or killed. So you set a story in an historical register because the truth you want to tell as a writer and as a creator and as a director is so hot that you either run afoul of the tastes of the censors or the powers that be, or your audience is just too close to it to see the truth that you need to tell. You're a writer, Steve. You know you have to tell the truth. You have to write the truth, right? Therefore, we writers are always looking for ways to tell the truth in such a way, not, we don't so much have to avoid the censors, although there's some of that, but really you're trying to find a way to make a truth that you believe your audience needs. But if you tell it in a contemporary register, they're going to miss on it completely.
It's the same thing with science fiction.
Amen.
You're just reversing it. You're going into the future.
Right.
But
and he says that
deal.
It's funny. He says exactly that. He says, and this is why people said it's super in the past or super in the future. Both have a cost, right? So my question to you then, as someone, so again, understand the Odyssey as the source material, but not the sort of the canonical last word. Why do you think Christopher Nolan looks at a story like the Odyssey? Now, you could argue that it's an existing intellectual property, and therefore it has a kind of an immediate cachet. I think that's true. But why does Christopher Nolan choose to use the Odyssey as a way to tell the truth that he wants to tell us right now in 2026?
No, I mean, it's the question that I've been thinking about since last night, and I haven't come to an answer I feel confident about yet.
Yeah, but you see what I'm trying to do with the question.
Yeah, 100%. Because
good.
And I would add something here that I think is really relevant. One of my greatest criticisms of Nolan's entire oeuvre, is that he unnecessarily complicates his stories in a way that often leaves the audience going, I'm not even sure what that was about.
Right? Scratching the head, yeah.
And this one is the opposite of that. He simplifies a complex story to make it imminently understandable. And that, to me, is a tell of the importance that he places on whatever the reason is, whatever the answer is to the question that you're asking. And I want to know what that is. I was thinking about that this afternoon, not long before we got on, and I'm like, there's something there. I just don't know what.
Do you remember the scene in Hades? Remember, they go to Hades. Circe, the witch, sends them to Hades, and they had this bowl where they offer an animal sacrifice, and then the shades come up from the ground, and they have to drink the blood in order to speak to Odysseus. And Sinon, the character that played by Elliot Page, is upset because Odysseus lied to him or whatever, right? And like, you lied to me. Do you remember Odysseus's retort?
Yeah. He said, I did because I needed you to believe the lie.
That. I needed you to believe. Okay. My take is that this serves as an entree into what motivates Nolan as a creator. I need you to believe. Now, my favorite Nolan film is The Prestige. And the entire conceit of The Prestige is that it is a film about magicians and making an audience believe the unbelievable, right? And so The Prestige, like that phrase, is the third part of the three-part structure of a magic trick.
Yeah, and it's the film of his that I think I remember the least. I haven't seen it in so long. I need to go back and watch it again.
I think it's his most meta film, interestingly enough, because all of his films are kind of meta, right?
Sure.
But I think it's the one, I call it his text. It's like because, okay, so here are the three parts of the prestige of a magic trick. The first part is the pledge, showing something ordinary, to establish to the audience a kind of baseline, right? Something like that. Like, look, here, a bird, right? The second part of the trick is called the turn, taking this bird, this ordinary thing, right, and making something fantastic happen. It disappears, right? Even the most amateur magician can do both of those things. But the great magician has the third part, which is called the prestige. It's the climax, right? Where the extraordinary is reversed. There's a revelation, and it takes a kind of unexpected twist, right? So the prestige is the thing, right? It makes you believe what is not believable. We're all sitting in a movie theater, and we know that that's Tom Holland. We know that that's Anne Hathaway. We know that that's Elliot Page, right? We know that that's Matt Damon. But when the movie works, you stop thinking of them as Anne Hathaway,
right?
And you're like, Penelope, Odysseus, right? So that's the conceit, right? That's the Trojan horse, if you will, right? It's the prestige. Now, I find it fascinating that the term for the revelation, the prestige, is also, we use that word prestige as, you've got it. Like, you're the shit.
Yeah. It's a status thing.
Exactly. And so all of it is predicated on some kind of faith, right? The vector of belief in what is unbelievable. So that's where my head is with this film. And so, like you said, unlike his other films, which are extremely complicated, right? And, I'm always like, wait, what exactly is going on? And like, okay, what are the visual signs and cues? He kind of reverses that here and tells a much more seemingly straightforward story. I don't know what to do with this, Steve. It's cool.
Do you even have a theory?
Not really.
Yeah. I just keep chewing on it, because it's like, it's only been like 13 hours since I finished the movie. And at least 6 of those hours were spent sleeping. So
like so I've been thinking a lot about this. Of course I have. No, like, again, it took every ounce of my pedantic nature. It took every ounce of my powers to keep in check my pedantic side about a story I'm very familiar with and I love a lot, and I love teaching it, and I think that Homer has so much to teach us and all this sort of stuff. It took every ounce of my self-restraint to kind of keep me in this place of belief. And early on, there were a couple of moments where I physically flinched at changes.
Yeah.
But I got better at it as I got, Kale, just let it go. Like, this is okay. Let it go. And like every time I saw like a race swap or I was like, let it go. Like, let it go. Oh, let it go. And so as I got deeper into it, I'm eager. I got myself into the position of looking forward to the prestige. The reversal and the revelation.
But what do you think was revealed? What was revealed? That was awesome, by the way. But
in the book, it's so cool because, it's really protracted, and the suitors are just total assholes.
Which, by the way, Pattinson did a great job.
He was great. Yes. He was great. Yeah, totally agree. But they like abuse him, and like it's so fraught with this dramatic irony in the book because like that that's really Odysseus, but he looks like a beggar and nobody can recognize who he is. And of course they can't recognize the greatness of Odysseus. That's part of their problem, right? And so every time he gets abused or cracked on, it's like, you're like, and the whole time Odysseus is like restraining himself because he's Greek. He's glory centric. Like, so he's having to swallow all of this pride in order to, because if he reveals himself too quickly, he's going to get killed. Telemachus is going to get killed. Penelope's going to get killed. The household's going to get, like, everything is at stake, right? So in the book, it's like this ratcheting effect. And then like Penelope decides, and you don't know how much she knows. Like, does she think that this beggar really is Odysseus? Like, it's really kind of unclear. I happen to think she doesn't fully know. And then she devises the test where they line up the axes.
Yeah.
And so they all get up and they're trying and they're grunting like, oh, I can't quite make it. And then they're like, oh, well, fine, we'll let the beggar try. Har, har, har. And so he like does it, strums it. And of course it sounds like a sparrow. Of course, the homecoming bird. And then he like takes the arrow, thunk, and goes right through. Mm-hmm. And it's at that point where he like throws off his beggar's outfit. He's like, bitch, I'm back, right? And he's like, it's just so
Which
cool.
I thought they did well in the movie.
Yeah, okay. Pedantic Kale is putting on the side.
I mean, like you said, it was more protracted in the book, but I thought, the score was really good in terms of like they did a good job building subliminal tension. Like I felt very, like you just said, they ratcheted. That was what it felt like. Is you're just ratcheting something, tightening.
Good.
And then when you get the dramatic release, it's like bam, like it's huge.
Yeah. They really nerf Telemachus hard in the film. But again, pedantic Kale on the side. That's works in terms of the story.
Because I like Tom Holland as an actor. I think he's a good actor.
Yeah. Now that would be one guy that I thought was a poor casting choice because he's too small and he's Spider-Man. He's just Spider-Man to me. Like, and I love him as Spider-Man. Like, I really legitimately love him as Spider-Man.
But I felt like they casted him because he's supposed to be a teenager, right?
Yeah, but in the book, like, okay, again, I know, I keep doing it. I'm trying hard, brother. I'm trying hard.
Because Tom Holland is 30.
I know. Right. Well, Telemachus
but he looks like a kid.
He's 18. So he's becoming he might even be 20, but somebody could fact check me in the notes here. But he's right at the point, and that's part of the drama of the story, is that as soon as you become man, you can become killed. Right.
Yeah. Right.
It's one of those things. Right. And so he's just too small and unimpressive. Like, if he's really the son of Odysseus, he has to be inches away from being as badass as Odysseus. You know?
And I think that's a bummer because Tom Holland is actually a very physically talented actor. He's a gymnast. Like he's strong. He's in great shape. Like, like they could have done more with that aspect, but they were really trying to kind of make him this guileless and innocent kid. And I wasn't sure how he was supposed to come across.
Yeah, and again, that's okay. That's okay. So, but I kind of want to go back to this question about why set the story in Homer's Greece? So I'm coming at what I'm doing here. I'm realizing as I'm saying it out loud. So sorry. I'm realizing that I'm coming at this from a reverse way.
Okay.
Right. Like I just told that story about the formation of the Globe Theater. Like, I just think that's a cool story. Like,
it's a great story.
That should be on film, right? It should be on film. Because there's something in the story itself that I think is cool and true. I don't think that's the case with Nolan. I think that he wanted to say something And the Odyssey was his best opportunity to dress it up to say something. Maybe that's my claim.
Okay. I know one of the themes that I've seen people talking about is, and I don't know whether we can adequately read this into it or not, but Nolan is a Brit.
Yeah.
And this idea of the unwelcome guests who are taking everything from your homeland is a theme that some people think was intentionally a big part of this, like wanting to go home, and then there's all these unwelcome guests that have made your home into a hostile place.
Okay, so points in that direction. Again, Nolan is the master of indirection. He's the master of the magic trick. This is why I always glom onto the Prestige as a kind of basic model for storytelling in the register that he likes to tell stories. You said 45 minutes ago now, he makes everyone not speak British. The only exception was a Scot. So, is that part of the indirection as well? By making them sound American, you bury that as a kind of cheap political point.
There's a subtext.
And you allow the story to kind of do its power. Because look, let's just take it at face value. You go away to fight a war for reasons, and you know that every day you're away, your home is in jeopardy. When you get back from home, when you get back from the war after a long time, your house is invaded by people who shouldn't be there. Who amongst us is going to be like, oh, welcome, guys. Come on.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
I'm glad that you ate away all of my posterity. I'm glad that you ate all of my sheep and my cattle. I'm glad that you abused my household. Please come on in. Can I get you a martini while we're at it? Of course not. But as soon as you dress it up in the idiom of 2026 and you use the word immigrant, migration,
right,
everybody retreats into their political
think about
positions.
I don't know how much of a rephrasing it was of the story from the poem, but they basically turned Zeus's law into the golden rule, but if you could boil it down to welcoming the stranger.
Yeah.
Which is the axiom that we hear all the time about immigrants. Right.
Now, so what's so interesting to me about this, I hold on to the golden rule thing for a second. But in the Homeric world, they have what's called the Aegis of Zeus, which is basically like the order, capital O, order of Zeus. And as part of the order of Zeus, remember, it's the Olympian order. And the Olympian order is the newer order of the gods because Zeus overthrew his father, the Titans, Kronos and the Titans. So the new order, the Olympian order, has kind of its own legal and moral foundations. And part and parcel that they sort of get at with this, what do they call the order of the rule of Zeus? What do they call it in the film?
The law of Zeus.
The law of Zeus. Well, in Greek, it's xenia. In English, it's spelled Xenia, xenia. And
which connotes stranger, right?
Right, like xenophobe, right?
Yeah.
But so it's the rule of the stranger, right? But it really in its issue, because it also works in Latin, it's hospitality, right? And so the basic rule is that the host has certain obligations to the stranger, the hostos, but the stranger has certain responsibilities to the host, right? So in the book, you see Telemachus learn this by going to Menelaus's house, Nestor's house first, but then Menelaus's house. And when he goes to a fully functioning household, he's welcomed. They don't know who he is, but he's welcomed. They bring him in, they bathe him, they take you into the banquet hall, you give them food, you give them drink, and you entertain them. And then you ask, who are you? And it's an algorithm. It's a script. This is how it's done. Because any personal beefs you might have to come after the experience of the obligation of the host to the stranger and the obligation of the stranger to the host. And so the stranger's obligation then is to truthfully say, this is who I am. So you see this pattern repeated over and over and over and over again in the book. And in part, it's true as it is in the film, because you don't know if the stranger that you're welcoming is Zeus, because Zeus always takes different forms. The gods take different forms to appear to human beings. And so it's a sign of respect. So to respect the stranger is to respect the gods, right? But the suitors are obviously violating the guest's obligation to the host. And so the reason why they merit execution, merciless execution, is because they violated the prevailing responsibilities of human beings as hosts and human beings as guests. So what makes our contemporary conversations about immigration such a hot mess is that we only recognize, apparently, the host's responsibilities to just give the stranger whatever they want.
Forever and ever, yeah.
Forever and ever, right?
To the destruction of your own homeland.
To the destruction of your own homeland, right?
Yeah.
And so this is why I love Eric Weinstein one time said, he's a xenophilic restriction. No, he's a xenophilic restrictionist.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I get that. I feel like that's me too.
You should invite people over for dinner, but they can't stay.
They can't stay, right?
So is that part of the covert messaging, the Trojan horse that Pajot is getting at? Maybe so.
I mean, it's certainly an easy theme to identify,
but also an easy theme to get wrong. But it's also an easy theme to get wrong.
But I mean, if it's not that, then what is it? Because what is,
Odysseus is in the film filled with regret.
Sure.
Both for the things that he's done and the time that he's lost with his family, right? And the things that he has had to do in order to win the war. It's in some sense, it's what we were talking about last episode about the good bad man.
Right. Yeah. Like the guys who will do the dirty deeds for you so that, so that your country can stay safe.
And that is Odysseus. I mean, that's what's so funny. That is Odysseus, the good bad man.
Yeah. He's haunted by the things that he had to do, by the things that his men have done, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, and I do think, people get pissy about the angst, but, there was a propagandistic value to telling a glory story.
Yeah.
Classically, because so much of life was martial and there were so many wars and there was all, I mean, we propagandize World War II all the time. We propagandize
and won.
Yeah. We propagandize, just military service in general, constantly glorifying it because otherwise nobody signs up to defend your country.
That's right.
But then the guys come back and they're like, this was awful.
Yeah.
They're not coming back talking about glory.
Right.
I know that there are there are some. But I mean, I have veterans in my family who just won't even talk about it.
Yeah. You can't
younger
talk
guys.
about it. You can't talk
guys
about
younger than me.
Yeah.
And I have a cousin who I believe he said it was the worst decision he ever made.
Yeah.
Was to sign up. And so it's like there is a lot of that is real, and I don't like just dismissing the idea that a character like that would feel that, but it's not potentially, I mean, it's not faithful to the original, so it's a theme we're kind of smuggling in, but it's a relatable theme.
Yeah.
The theme of wanting to go home, but you can't go home again is a relatable, very relatable theme. There was something that I actually was really struck by too. When he leaves Calypso, she tells him that Zeus won't let Poseidon kill him, but you have to just accept your punishment and abandon yourself to the fate that the gods give you. And I was like, there was something really profound in that, but I don't know that was the message that he was given in the story.
That's faithful.
Like
that's faithful to Homer.
Okay.
That's definitely faithful to Homer. Because remember, he's been offered immortality. But in order to become immortal, he loses his name. He loses his glory.
Right.
He loses his home. He loses his humanity. So to me, one of the profound parts of Homer's vision is that he very much sees that meaning, human meaning, is not possible without suffering. And that to be human and to be fully human and to be a great human is to suffer greatly. Now, again, this is Homer. You know, I know we could talk about tratty stuff, we're, but you know, that his greatness as a man is his willing to shoulder the burden of suffering. To me,
and the
that's
responsibility for decisions that have been made.
That's right. That's right.
Like, he's not trying to blame anybody else.
Right. Right.
But I feel like that's another theme that feels like it could encapsulate, you know, what's being expressed here is we are living in a world that is coming apart because the gods are punishing us for something that we did. Right? So what could that be in Nolan's conception is an interesting question as well.
Yeah, and I think that perhaps on the plus column, by de-emphasizing all the gods except an occasional cameo of Athena, you start to conceive of the gods as primal forces that we all feel.
Sure.
Right? Neither of us are pagan, right? You know, we don't believe in, like, you know, Zeus. But I kind of do. You know what I mean? Like we know what these like to
the
be.
Forces are identifiable.
That's right. That's right. You know, like the forces of love, you know, the forces of war, you know, the forces of being a trickster.
It's like there's an animating spirit behind
things
right. when they become big enough.
That's exactly right. And we don't know why these things happen to us. We don't know why we're motivated the way we are. But so the Greeks, I think, very cannily name them, embody them.
So here's an interesting theory that's probably total BS, but just kind of popped into my head. What's the last movie Nolan made before this?
It's not Dunkirk.
Mm-mm.
It is.
I know what it is. I'm wondering if you.
Yeah, no, hold on.
2024.
I don't know.
Oppenheimer.
Oh, right. Duh. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So what's that about?
Unleashing the power of the gods and the guilt.
Yeah. So what if there's a connection thematically between these two?
Yeah.
We're being punished in a broken world for the things that we did that broke the relationships between men.
Wow, that's good.
I don't know if it's there.
Yeah,
but
no. That's firing off a bunch of things in my head. Because look, if you know anything about like a creative, you think of somebody like Martin Scorsese, another, you know, one of our great storytellers. You don't even have to like him, but, you know, there's a greatness to his body of work. He's always working the same things. He's always working the same themes. You know, I've spent now a lifetime teaching Shakespeare, and Shakespeare's always working the same themes.
Because once a man is haunted by something that he can't get answers to, like art is where you go to work that out.
That's exactly right.
Art is the dojo of the soul, kind of, you know?
I love that. No, I love that. You know, and it's like, and you're telling versions of it, and it's like, you know, it's like Hamlet is not the answer to the enigma of Shakespeare. But like Hamlet with Macbeth and King Lear and The Tempest, you know, you start adding these things together, and this super thing kind of starts to emerge, right? This haunting emerges not in a kind of like, it's not a negative haunting exactly, but it's a haunting.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, look, I mean, I experienced this in my own work, in the direction that it's taking, you know, as a writer. And I'm constantly thinking about, like, I can't figure out answers to this. What if I express it a different way? What if I try to capture it differently? What if I put it into fiction and I create dialogues that help, you know, make sense out of it? Because part of it is I can't figure it out myself, and I want to put it in front of an audience and say, what do you make of this?
Yeah, I remember for a while, Peterson was working on this idea, and I kind of wish he would go back to it. It's frustrating because a lot of the podcasts that he put out in like 2021, 22, you know, got memory hold. Like you can't find them anymore. But he was talking about this idea. I think it's an idea from Whitehead, English philosopher, mathematician. And it's something along the lines, and I'm sure you've heard me talk about it even, or maybe just from Peterson himself, but we have ideas so that our ideas die, not us. And so stories are us externalized so that a bunch of us can watch it, so that the characters live or die or fall in love or whatever.
Effigies, basically.
Yeah, right. As kind of avatars of ideas and selves and motifs that we have inside of us that we can then throw onto a stage or on a film, and a bunch of us can kind of share the dream. Because, you know, dreams we experience alone. But the peculiar power of the poet or the creator or the artist is that he can create something so that we can share the dream. You know, so that you and I, thousands of miles away from one another on the same day at slightly different times, can go experience this thing that he made some months ago and edited and all that nice stuff. And we can both watch the dream and experience that dream. And it's really powerful.
It is. And I don't always like what Nolan does with his storytelling, but I take him very seriously as an artist.
Yeah. I like that.
And the feeling that I have, and again, I haven't read any interviews with him about this or anything, so he could have answered some of these questions, and I don't know. But like, this is one he's been chewing on for a while. Like, he's been building towards being able to make this movie. That's the feeling that I get. And I have to say, like, we haven't even talked about the fact that this movie was a freaking spectacle. Like, it was
beautiful.
It was an experience. It was not just watching a film, especially in the theater.
Yeah.
Like, in the theater that I go to is just a couple miles away, and it's not a very big theater, but the one that they put this in had excellent speakers.
Yeah.
And there are just scenes where you are drowned in violent noise in a way that makes you feel like you are in the action.
Yeah, boy, the one in particular was when they're in the boat at night and they're being pounded by Poseidon's storm. And it's like, I'm just like on edge. I'm like, somebody turn the lights on. You know, it's
it's a lot. And the same thing with the Cyclops too, when he starts bellowing and
it's very good, very effective. Yeah,
the sound design was excellent in this film, but it's like, you know, it started out and I had this joke in my mind, like the opening scene, and I'm like, and I'm already bored.
Yeah.
Right. You know. But the thing is that I was not, you know, I was entertained very quickly after the movie opened, and I was drawn in a way that I didn't expect to be, because I went in kind of, you know, skeptical and
you
not so sure.
You were definitely meh going into this film. I
was very meh. I wasn't, you know, antithetical, but I was like, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I was anxious going in. You were like, all right, yeah, here we go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of it was like, do I want this to be my first experience of this story? You know, because I haven't gotten around to reading it. You know, because, you know, am I going to, you know, always see the Punisher every time that I read about Menelaus, you know, John Bernthal, you know, totally. like those associations when you see a movie before you read a book tend to stay with you.
Yeah.
And so those were there too. But I don't know. I don't remember the last time I saw a film and it felt like an amusement park ride.
Wow.
But this one did to me.
Yeah. And that's just good filmmaking, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so many people are just quibbling about the costumes and this and in the boats, and they're not, period specific, and and the texture of the cloth, and everything's in sand, everything's dune now. Like everybody's a gosh dang cynic these days.
Yeah, and it's as if everybody has downloaded the "well actually" meme.
Yeah,
and is just gonna. Look, you don't have to like this film. I don't think neither of us are like the guy like you have to,
right.
Fine.
I don't care what you like.
Right, exactly. Like, fine.
But just don't act like everybody else should do what you think about it because you have decided before even seeing it that you don't like it.
Yeah.
Like, and I keep seeing people commenting on it, like smart people, like Tony Esolen today posted something on Facebook that was negative about it. I don't remember what it was. All I did is, he said, so I hear that blah, blah, blah. And then he went off on this rant. And I just commented. And I said, why don't you watch it before you comment?
Right.
Like, just watch it. Make your own decision about it.
Right. So that version of Kale was exactly what I was trying to keep on the back burner. Because I could play that role. I would say, I have never considered myself a scholar. I'm not a scholar. I'm a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read this thing probably 12 times and I've taught it 9 times. So I know it really well. So I could do the "well actually" meme all day long. But why? What other than trying to flex to my audience that I know stuff and you don't. Like, come on, man. Like, what is that?
There's just so much. I mean, there's so many people that their initial reaction is scoffing and mocking and that. And then there's the tribal signaling. And then there's the whole, well, if you support stuff like this, they're just going to keep making more of it. And I'm just like, have you ever seen a major motion picture that wasn't tainted in some way by the corrupt mechanisms of Hollywood? Like I mentioned earlier, in the show, and I didn't really explain it, that Oppenheimer was the first to win an Academy Award for Best Picture under the new Academy standards. It was a very white movie. Like, the cast was pretty much universally white, right?
Yeah.
But it was the crew. Like, the crew was there, right? They were doing DEI hiring for the crew. Movies are part of this giant machine with hundreds of moving parts.
Massive.
And you're having to please, the people who are financing it. You're having to please the studio executives. You're having to please, the unions. There's so many things competing for your ideological alignment that I just don't think you're ever going to get some Simon Pure film that isn't made by some dude in his basement that's not worth watching,
Right. So again, to bring up Shakespeare, because I think this is helpful, you can read Shakespeare's Macbeth very cynically and simply say Shakespeare's Scottish play was an attempt to curry favor with the new king of England, James I of England, who was first James IV of Scotland. And he's just writing a play to kiss the new monarch's ass.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably true. I'm sure as part of Shakespeare's thinking, like, okay, it's good to have the favor of the king,
right?
Because I can make some money so that I can keep doing my craft and I can win favor with the king, because if I fall out of favor with the king, then I'm not going to be able to do my craft. They're going to shut me down. Like, is Shakespeare's Macbeth permanently tainted because he had to play within the unjust rules of the world? No, it's great, right?
Yeah. And honestly, it also advances the cause of your subversive messaging. As long as you're not too on the nose about it.
That's right.
I mean, this is a stupid example, but when I was in Austria for our European semester, they had a poetry competition, or no, it was a design competition for the Austria 99 t-shirts, right?
Yeah.
But there was this thing going on at that time where the school administration was really not wanting the European students who were underage in America, like sending anything back home saying that they were drinking, because that sends the wrong message and blah, blah, blah. And so it was like, you can't say anything about beer. You can't say any, So I wrote a poem.
This is great.
And the first letter of each line of the poem spelled out Kaiser beer is good, right?
Love it. Yeah, right.
But I wrote this whole poem, and it was a good poem, and people liked the poem for what it is. But when so the designs are up on the wall, and I just pointed out to a couple people, look, this is the real meaning, right? And then the rumors spread, and everybody voted for me, and I won the contest in a landslide, because everybody was like, screw you, we're going to do whatever we want. Like, stop trying to tell us not to do it, right? But that's the thing. Like, if I had been too obvious, the administrators would have shut it down. And they didn't, because I hid it in plain sight. And so I kind of feel like when you look at things like, he was very overt with his casting choices being very diverse, and all this stuff, it's like that is the perfect vehicle to hide a subversive message under, because everybody's like, oh, look, he's, in communion with the woke left. Like he's a card carrying member of the people who know that this is how we're supposed to act in 2026. So meanwhile, he might actually be saying, hey, the immigrants that we've got overrunning our countries are unwelcome and they need to go home.
So the type of poem that you wrote is called an acrostic.
Okay.
In which the first letter of each line, it functions as a poem, but the first letter spells a word, and it's
Gotcha.
it's a kind of creative subversion, right? So you could make an argument, and I think that's what we're doing here, is that this is sort of this could be a film equivalent of an acrostic, right? In which, you're playing within the rules, but okay, I'll play within the rules. I'll do the DEI stuff. Like, fine. I'll make it work and still tell the story that I want to tell.
Which is a pretty genius thing to do.
That's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Especially at this level, because dude is playing at the top of his game, at the top of his career, right?
And look, both you and I, we both write. You're crazy if you think people don't do this. Like, you're naive. You're absolutely naive if you don't think people do this.
Well, yeah, of course. Obviously, they have to. I mean, it's how do you, I bet you could study any communist country and find this kind of stuff. I mean, there's so many examples that I have no doubt that you could find.
Yeah. So in that vein, then, again, I keep going back to my question. I'm sorry, audience, I don't have an answer to the question, but why did he tell this story? And why did he tell it this way? I think there's a holy grail hidden here.
And you put layers into this stuff. So I found my poem, which I haven't read in 30 years, right?
Funny.
This is how it goes. It's very short.
Yeah.
Keep in mind when you return, as Austria you leave behind, in every land there is a treasure, something only there to find. Every sip from life's great chalice renders joy within the soul, brought to life in every palace, inscribed in Europe as a whole. Each endeavor you have followed rings with deeply layered truth. I mean, I'm really pushing it, right?
It's great.
In the storms that you have weathered stands the zealous strength of youth. Take with you the love of living, goodly wanderlust inspires. Until death, keep always burning the wonder that true life requires. And then
That's
the first letter of each one in German says, Kaiser Bier ist gut.
So good. That's so great. That's so
fun.
Great. But it's so what's so interesting to me is that, like, you just sort of intuitively gravitate toward this. Like, you just it's an act of creative subversion. It's
Don't
wonderful.
Tell me what I'm not allowed to do.
Right.
I'm going to find a way.
Right.
Like that was it.
Yeah. And I think that goes for all, like, rules of storytelling, right? It's like, give me the rules, please. It helps me, actually.
Because I know exactly where the parameters are. It provides which lines not to cross.
Creative constraints, right? And that's where the magic happens. When okay, fine, I'll tell this story. So that's why
I doubt whatever Nolan's actual theme is. I doubt any time in the near future that he will ever confirm it, because then it loses its potency.
Right. The magician never tells you, never explains to you. Again, that's why I keep going back to The Prestige, because the film, because I think that that's how he conceives of what he does. Right. Number one, it's a form of magic, making you believe, but also it's it always leaves you with that uncanny sense, like, wait, is it real? Like, is this real?
Right.
It's perfect. Then that's exactly what you want your audience to feel. You want them in that weird liminal space between belief and unbelief.
Now, what is the trick? When I mean, M. Night Shyamalan is famous for this, right? Because he would always flip it around somewhere near the end, and it got kind of gimmicky. But I think Nolan does it less overtly. But I mean, the first film I ever saw from him, I was in college. I mean, it was Memento, which was a really good.
Yeah.
But I mean, he always seems to have, and honestly, in a way, this whole thing of making this story relatable to modern audiences, but doing it in a way that people are complaining about and all this stuff. It's kind of from Batman, the hero we need, not the one we deserve.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting the heroic epic we need, not the one we deserve.
Yeah.
Because the one we deserve would be much more, overtly chastising us for our sins.
Yeah, boy. You're making me like this film better.
Yeah, and we may be completely reading all of this into it, and maybe it's not there, but I like our version of this.
I don't think so, man. I again, given the body of his work, this to me lines up exactly with, I mean.
And by the way, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt your thought, but you just made me think of something else. You had said earlier in this episode that one of the big themes here is lost time, the grief over lost time, right? That's also Interstellar.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And of course, memory and time are huge elements in Memento. I mean, Memento, memory, right? Memory and time. Boy, there's a dissertation in all of this.
I think there is, and I think people who are really steeped in his work might have an easier time pulling out the threads.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that there are only certain movies of his that I like, and they're the only ones I really remember. And I still see the connective tissue between just those.
I mean, World War II features pretty prominently in his imaginary.
Yeah.
Dunkirk, of course.
Right.
Oppenheimer. Is it possible that this is also a kind of meditation on a big, great war that may or may not have been won, but the costs themselves are so buried? I mean, we've been talking about this since episode 1, Steve.
Right. This is kind of our central theme.
Yeah.
Is that the World War II moment and what came after it changed the trajectory of human history forever.
Yeah.
In ways that we're still kind of excavating.
I don't know if you remember this, Steve, but our first episode you and I ever recorded together, when you were at 1 Peter 5 and you had me on, we talked about maybe the Allies lost the Second World War.
I do not remember that.
Yes.
But I'm not surprised that we discussed it.
Yeah. That we say we won, but did we win? Right. And I'm roughly speaking, the West, whatever you want to, the good guys, as we might say.
Well, it's why for a minute I was willing to entertain, Daryl Cooper and Tucker Carlson's whole thing about Churchill, and Pat Buchanan has been making this argument since the 90s. This isn't new.
Yeah.
He wrote a book called Hitler, Churchill, and the Unnecessary War in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? So there is this feeling of like we kind of glibly and gleefully engaged in this orgy of violence that now has spawned a new era, and that it could have potentially been prevented and maybe things would have taken a bit of a different course. But, I even think in the context of Odysseus coming home and seeing the state of Ithaca and everything, do you remember that video that came out a few months ago of the old British veteran? He was like 95,
man,
pushing 100.
Gutting.
And just talking about how, like, he didn't know if the sacrifices they had made in World War II were worth it because look at the state of the country now.
Yeah. Oh, man. I remember that vividly. And he's like this old guy. I mean, he's like old.
Yeah, like
he's crying.
He could go at any minute, you know? And it's like
he could go in the middle of this video, and he's crying. It's like, was the sacrifice worth it? Whew, man, talk about gutting.
Yeah, but I see that here too.
Yeah. And like that's the amazing thing about the Trojan War. It's like it's this great originary war. Like it's both a thing, particularly, right? It's the Achaeans versus the Trojans, the Achaeans who become the Greeks, right? But it touches everything and everybody who was part of it. I mean, that's like Agamemnon's story. We won the war, but we lost the homecoming, right? I mean,
haven't we been engaged in nonstop mythology about the war since it happened?
Absolutely. I mean, and again, look, I think it's important. What I think is important to remember is that mythology doesn't mean lie, right? Mythology means the story that we live in. And mythologies as a story that a collection of people live in works until it doesn't. And then we need to rework the myth. And boy, it really feels like we are right smack in the middle of reworking this myth. And it's super complicated because we're not talking about a myth of a location anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about a myth of America or France or China. We're talking about because of the powers of technology, we all largely live in this sort of super myth of globalism or of civilization, of technology. We're talking about colonizing the moon so that we can colonize Mars. Everything has become so meta, that in like, what does it mean to have a global myth? It's like, what is it? There's a great line. I think it's Ted Hughes, an Irish poet, who says, the line goes something like, who thought Homer could make such a thing out of a local row? Right. And how is it that, you and I living here, in 2026 are still talking about the Trojan War? Like, how cool
it's crazy, right?
How cool is that? You know what I mean?
But I do you not see the symmetry though between the Trojan War and World War II in terms of being like epoch defining events that will be talked about forever?
I should think so. And especially if you want to scale it. I mean, the way, I always tell my students, I do this course on the 20th century, and, it is my contention, and this is not me. I just, I've heard it said, and I think it's true that, in 100 years, 150, 200 years, we're not going to really be talking about World War I and World War II. We're going to talk about like the Great War.
Yeah, the Great War. Yeah, because people don't realize how close they were together.
No, I know. I mean, and again, in the scope of history, it's like, we fought this awful war, and then we like went away for a few minutes, and then we started it all back up again.
Yeah, it was like first half, second half. We just had we had halftime.
Right.
It was I think it was like, when was the Treaty of Versailles?
1939, and Hitler
comes to power in 33. So you're talking about literally 14 years between the end of the First World War and him rising to power.
Right, and that entire 14, 15-year period is a world depression, the hyperinflation that is affecting not just Germany. I mean, it's like...
14 years ago for us is 2012. Think
Right.
about what you were doing in 2012. It was not that long ago.
Right.
I still remember a lot that happened that year.
Yeah. No, that's great perspective.
And I think we forget too that, as Gen Xers, we grew up just a few decades after the end of World War II. We're way farther from the end of World War II now. Like, when we were born, what was it, like 30 years since?
Yeah, and think about this. I was born the year we pulled out of Vietnam. What? Like, I remember as a kid, I was like, Vietnam is like ancient.
Yeah, it felt like it.
No, it was like a minute ago, Kale, actually. Right?
Yeah. And that was the last one that felt like it was on that scale.
Yeah.
Which is weird because we were in Iraq for forever.
Afghanistan, Iraq again, and who knows what the hell's going on with friggin' Iran. Jeez Louise.
I don't know. It just kind of disappears periodically from our consciousness and then shows back up when the bombs start falling again.
Yeah.
By the gas, I know that I'm still paying almost $4 for gas. So there's that.
I'm over for now. $4.19.
Like we got all the way down to, I paid like $3.17 for gas one day about a month ago, and now it's back up in the 380s again.
Yeah.
And I don't even know why. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, couldn't tell you. And nobody can tell you really. So I mean, if we think about, myth as the story that we live in, and I've been talking about, the nadir of modernity, that the 20th century is the long 20th century. Like, when is it going to stop? When is it going to be over? What do you think it means that we are living through a reworking of the super myth? Like, what are the implications for this?
I don't know if we can know from inside of it, right? I mean, one of the first episodes we did was about the coming global storm. The 5 forces that are reshaping the world, which I was writing about, but I bored myself to death writing about it, and I stopped. Because I just don't want to write those kind of pieces anymore. I'm tired of writing, polemics and arguments. And
you said that the other day on Substack.
Book reports, yeah.
What did you mean by that?
I have spent so much of my time arguing with people to make points, to advance positions, to recount things from history, to try to establish an ideological beachhead about things. And we talked about this on the last show. Like, it just doesn't move the needle for most people. I mean, there are certainly people who come to it who are amenable to it, and they're like, oh, I learned something from that. Or, I have the same thing. If I read something that I already more or less agree with, but I don't know all the details, and it adds a new dimension. But we're not persuading anybody of anything. So that's part of it. Part of it is that I am just exhausted from struggle and conflict in my life.
Yeah.
And so arguing with people all the time just doesn't feel appealing anymore. Yeah. I'm much more drawn now to the transcendentals, to truth, beauty, and goodness. Like, I want to find those things. I think they convey more. I think they allow us to communicate with people who disagree with us about things. Like, one of the things I think about a lot, because I live in a very liberal city. Raleigh is extremely liberal, considering that it's in the South.
Yeah.
Is like, when I meet people, should I tell them about my Substack? Now, in the old days, if I told people about it, they would be like, oh, they would hate it because it's like, oh, you're Mr. Conservative religious guy who writes, from that perspective. Now, it's not so much that my views have changed. It's just I don't talk about them all the time. I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about experiences. I'm talking about rediscovering, human connection. I mean, the deprivation of human connection that I have experienced in my own life over the past year has really caused me to notice more fully how disconnected and atomized we all are. Like, there are no spaces in which you can meet a friend if you live somewhere where you don't already have one. We don't have like opportunities to mingle and socialize and meet people of like mind. And
what do they call that? Third places?
They basically don't exist anymore. But like, we have major universities here. We have Duke, we have UNC Chapel Hill, we have William Peace University, we have NC State. Like, we have like 100,000 student population in the triangle here, in a city that's only, 500,000 to 1 million people, depending on how far out you make the radius go. So it's a big percentage are students, but I don't see lecture series anywhere that I can go attend. Like there are so few opportunities for that stuff. And then when you do interact with people, or when you have the opportunity to, they're always looking at their phones. Like people aren't sitting and talking. Or,
No.
I did have an interesting experience where the other night I went over to the Asian grocery store on the other side of town to get some stuff I could only get there. And I stopped into this boba tea shop that was right next door. And there were a bunch of people sitting at a table playing board games, like 8 or 10, and they were young. They were in their 20s. And I was like, I don't see that anywhere. Like, that's pretty neat. But in general, as somebody who lives in a city alone and would like some social interaction, I can't figure out how to have those connections. And I use, I supplement my writing income with grocery deliveries through Instacart. And almost every day I'm dropping things off at a closed door. I'm not going face to face. I'm not seeing people.
Right.
And even sometimes I'll have fun interactions with somebody who's a customer, just through the messaging system in the app, which we use to be like, hey, did you want this toilet paper or that toilet paper? Whatever. And like I had this great exchange with a woman the other day who was, she said cool beans to me. And I'm like, hey, that's one of my favorite expressions, and we went back and forth and we started talking about the movie Hot Rod. And, like we had this little rapport going. Yeah. They sent her a Wonder Twins meme. She got it immediately. Yeah. And then I still dropped off to a closed door. Like there's no interpersonal contact that happens beyond that. And people look shocked sometimes when I just engage with them, when I make a joke with somebody I don't know because I notice they're looking for something on a shelf they can't find, or they're parked in the 10-minute parking spot for an hour and they don't get in trouble. And I'm like last night I came out of the movie and it's in a plaza where it's all 10-minute parking all around, but all the shops close at 9.
Yeah, right.
And so I asked the guy in the movie theater, I'm like, can I park up here because everything's closed without having to worry about it? He's like, I wouldn't risk it. He's like, because sometimes they still check.
Amazing.
And I was like, okay. So I parked around the corner. I found a spot kind of far away. And then I see these girls coming out of the same movie as me, and they get it to their car and they're in that area. And I was like, wait, you can park in the 10-minute without getting in trouble? They were like, no, this one didn't have the sign. That's why we parked there. Like, but they looked so surprised that a strange man who just came out of the same freaking movie as them asked them a question. People are shocked by just normal interpersonal interaction that we used to have all the time growing up. And so I've really been thinking a lot about how technology obsessed and possessed we are, and about how like I'm a big tech user, that.
Yeah.
But it's like the only thing that's left within our domain are real embodied human experiences. Like AI is just taking over quietly more and more and more stuff. We're all online more and more and more. People don't go to movies as much. I mean, this movie, The Odyssey, is making headlines because it's a huge opening.
People are actually going to the movies.
People are going to the theater. I mean, I went to this movie at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, knowing it wouldn't be over until after 1 a.m. And the theater wasn't packed, but it was decently full, which is crazy to me on a weeknight.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So there's something going on. We've talked about the return of analog. Like there's a feeling of people are getting fed up with everything being streamed, everything being two-factor authentication, everything being an app, everything being impersonal. You can't just talk to a person and get something done if you have a problem. You're talking to somebody in a call center halfway around the world, or now you're talking to an AI.
Yeah.
Like I'm starting to get customer service AIs, which I prefer because they speak English. But they're even more like hardcore about enforcing company policy. If you hit an impasse with an AI, you can't social engineer them.
No.
Which I can do frequently with real people. I can develop rapport, and I can get around barriers sometimes because somebody likes me. Like the maintenance supervisor that was here, I made friends with him, and I got one of the first air conditioner replacements, when they were doing all these units, and then they ended up changing management companies, and he's gone.
Oh, bummer.
But my air conditioner works great, and it's been a hot summer, and my bills have dropped because the old one was so old. And it's like those little things that you do where you just make connections. Like I texted the guy and wished him a happy Father's Day because I knew he just had his first baby. It's just little stuff like that.
Yeah.
we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of just leaning into that whole, like, be a human again.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have talked about, the return of the analog, but we're even using analog as a metaphor or as an analogy, I suppose. Right. What we're really talking about is a return of the human, right? A return of the embodied, because that is what it costs to live in our techno utopia, right? What it appears to cost is our very humanity.
Yes.
And you're feeling that acutely. It's interesting. My daughter took a job at the little grocery store around the block, and it's kind of like a boutique. It's like a little boutique grocery store. It's more expensive. It's not the big Stop and Shop.
It's like an institutionalized farmer's market.
Kind of, yeah, exactly.
Utilizes basically the same supply chain as everybody else, but does it fancier. Yeah,
exactly. And and you go there for the human touch, like, there's a bunch of, so anyway, but it's so funny, to watch my daughter, so I pick her up from work every day, and she kind of gives me a rundown of the day. Oh, I saw such and such, and it's local, so that she sees people we know all the time, and like, oh, I saw Maribel, da da da, and but her number one complaint, and she said it 3 out of the last 4 nights I picked her up from work. Dad, like, look, I know that people are coming here, like, they're busy and they've got stuff going on, but it's like, I cannot tell you how rude it is for people to come through the checkout line and ignore me and talk on their phone.
Oh my gosh, it's the worst.
Yeah, yeah. And it's what's so interesting to me, of course, is that you and I are, veterans of the analog world. My daughter, of course, is a veteran of the digital first world, and she just like intuitively gets like, and she's like, look, I know maybe like it's an important business call, but it's like, it's kind of 7:30 on Saturday. Like, I'm sure you can just like put your phone down and say hello.
There's something inherent in us that recognizes that this is wrong. I think, and people who don't, I'm like, what's going on with you?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I've never been texting or on a phone call because I was waiting in a long grocery line. But the minute I get to the cashier, I'm like, I got to go. I'm checking out,
Look,
like.
Well, I mean, there are times where you and I are on the phone and you'll say, hey, Kale, I got to call you back. I'm in the checkout line. Like, that's just like a basic human decency.
Although even checkout lines now are mostly self-checkouts. Like, everything isolates us.
Right.
From human contact.
Right.
And when you have none, like I have literally none, except for when I go visit my kids.
Yeah.
Other than cashiers and other customers in stores, or if I have to check somebody's ID because they have an alcohol delivery.
Right.
Like, those are the only human interactions that I get, and I maximize every single one of them, because otherwise you start to feel like a ghost.
So it's interesting. So we started off the show, you let me tell my sob story about living in the dorm. It's the summertime, people, so the students are not there, right? But we have lived in a detached house. So for 10 years, we lived in a dorm. We had a faculty apartment in the dorm. And, from September to May, there's people around all the time, right? When you're a house parent, you're dealing with kids and parents and everything. And then in the summer, it's kind of nice because I live in a park here, essentially. And so you run into fellow faculty members, et cetera, but it's kind of low key. But when we moved into a detached house, it's actually just off campus, even though it's technically campus housing. And we've been up there for almost 9 years now. And as terrible of a living situation it is to be living in a dorm with your family and your 2 dogs, every one of us have said, man, it's just kind of cool to
be around people.
Run into people all the time. Yeah.
But you know what I miss, man, is like when I lived on campus in college, I would walk around till 3 a.m. every night looking for people to talk to.
Exactly. Hey, what's up? Yeah, 100%. 100%. And it's interesting. I knew that I would think that.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised that my family members feel that, because they're a little, I'm an extrovert,
No, I mean, I realized that I actually am one too. I just lived like an introvert.
That's right.
Most of my married life.
That's right.
I'm not going to decode that one right now.
We're just going to let that float in the ether.
We're just going to let that go.
There it is. And, okay.
But I took Peterson's personality test, the Big Five test, and I got an 82% extroverted. And I was like, me? The guy who lives in the cave?
This test is bogus.
The guy who's never called a friend ever once in his life?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
So much of that's circumstantial, right? And,
yeah, it is. It is.
But look, this is Aristotle 101. We are designed and destined to live in community. Right. And all of the forces that we live in, this digitally fueled, utopia, are designed to deracinate, to sort of strip as much of that human friction away as possible. So you're talking about filling Instacarts. Like, that's a perfect example. Not only do you not get those interactions, but the person that you deliver. Now, look, maybe they are disabled or whatever, but
no, there's too many. And so many times the instructions in the app when I go to drop off say, please do not ring the doorbell or knock. Just leave at the door. It's so
wow.
Top of the hand.
Yeah. And it's what's going to happen? Like, are you going to melt if you interact with another human being?
And sometimes they'll make a mistake and they'll put meet the customer. And so I'll drop off and I'll ring the doorbell and I know they don't actually want me to meet them. And they'll answer the door and they'll look confused and I'll say, well, it says in the app to meet you. And so that's the protocol.
So sorry.
So I'm just making sure.
Sorry.
And they'll be like, oh, okay, I didn't realize I selected that. Okay, thanks. But it's it cut off contact as quick as you can.
Yeah. It's almost radioactive.
That's so weird, dude. It's so weird. Just again, going back to our childhoods where we were, it's cliche, but we literally rode bikes everywhere. We knew neighbors. We talked to old people and young people. I knew my neighbor Gordy next door. I knew the people who owned the Chinese restaurant downtown, 2 doors up. You interacted with people because that was your only social thing. Now we fill all of that by going on X and just overloading on virtual interactions, half of which are from complete assholes.
Right.
That are just there to give you a hard time.
You see the guy who blocked me today?
Yeah, what was that all about?
It's so strange. I mean, I am not a pugilistic X user, as you know. Yeah. You make fun of me or something. You're like, Kale.
No, you're not at all.
And I don't even, it was something innocuous about, it was about the Aeneid. And I thought that's cool that Nolan is doing a version of reworking a myth. And he's like, you have a stupid name. You're named after lettuce and you have no brain. Literally.
So ridiculous.
And so then I just said, I clicked like. And
you actually kind of jokingly agreed with him.
I went, yes, LOL.
And then he goes, not something I'd be proud of, but you do you, preferably somewhere else, right?
Block.
So
okay,
somebody
brother.
replied to you and they said, what on earth? The hostility of the response seems out of proportion to the disagreement. And I said, that should be the description of this website.
Of the app.
You go to the app store, it should be the hostility of the responses are disproportionate to the disagreement.
So good. Completely bizarre. But to the point, right? That person, whoever they are, would never say that to me in person. Would never. They might be like, oh, I don't know if I agree with that take. Okay.
I don't know if YouTube will censor me today, but just my little review that I made of the Odyssey last night, one of the responses I got was just FAG, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to say it because YouTube listens,
Yeah.
Faggotron.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was, I was what the hell?
Yeah, what? What?
How is that even a response to what I wrote?
Right. and you sort of sometimes you post and, you're either, one is you're being a little bit inflammatory. So you kind of expect, okay, somebody's going to get all hot and bothered about this. Hilarious, but fine. But this was truly innocuous.
Yeah.
Truly innocuous.
Yeah.
And
I don't know about you, but you anticipate, you're like, as soon as I say this, I'm going to, at least 30% of the responses are going to be absolutely ridiculous and obnoxious.
Well, yeah. When I wrote that piece on Candace Owens last week, in which we wound up talking about on the episode, I think the way that I posted it on X was something like, well, this probably won't go over well, but here goes. Because I knew it was just going to invite all kinds of crazy stuff. And most of it was just like kind of Candace stands, mostly women who were like, Candace is telling the truth, and you can make fun of all you want, but it's the Jews. You're just like, okay, brother or sister, like, you're crazy. Like, what can I say? Fine. But then, this persnickety Catholic tradish influencer type was like, I can't believe Pat Coffin. I think I can't.
You would say this to a good Catholic
woman. I was like, who? Like, what are we even doing here? This is
autofellatio. That's what.
That's what he probably wants, but
no, it's the auto kind. It's the self kind.
Yeah.
It's so obnoxious. So, but this is what fills our social bucket, so to speak.
Yeah.
So much of the time, because of how atomized and isolated that we all are. And because a lot of it is unpleasant, I think it increases our guardedness and defensiveness, even in real life.
Especially in real life, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very strange. I mean, it's not something I'm sure about, but I feel like it must, right? Because you're like, people will say things like, oh, Twitter is not real life. And I'm like, well, there's real people who are responding to me. They have a computer or a phone somewhere.
Yeah.
And I know some are probably bots, which I also don't get, because what's the point? But it's like, we're real. And we're on there.
Yeah.
And I assume most of the other people that are interacting with us are also real people who, for whatever reason, woke up today and chose violence every day.
Every day. Yeah. I think the bot thing is like radically decreased, honestly.
Yeah, I've never really detected the bot thing.
Yeah.
And maybe it's my, whatever. But interestingly, I'm thinking about all of this in the context of today's theme. And it's like, it's a movie about embodied experiences in community with other people. There's never really any scene in the entire movie where somebody's completely alone.
It's true.
It's not a one man with one mission.
Right.
It's a,
well, even the theme, that's certainly there in the book too. Homecoming, nostos in the Greek, right? How about this? Again, thinking about in big symbolic terms, analogies, etc. Modernity has been alienating, and it has been domicidic, right?
Many in the sense of killing the home.
Killing the home, right? And so as a kind of a larger metaphor, we are all longing for home, both particularly, again, given particular situations, you talk about this, of course, but we all feel this sense, even those of us who actually have a relatively healthy home life, we all sense that some big underneath capital H home has been stripped from us.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you do feel a certain amount of guilt about it, I don't know, but insofar as the film draws from that deep well of the Odyssey, Homer's Odyssey, maybe modernity itself is the Trojan War.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I noticed my reaction as you were saying that, sort of from a meta perspective. And I wanted to reflexively say, well, home isn't really a place, it's other people. I think that home was a place for most of history.
Right.
And it was the people in it, but we had the first category just eradicated.
Well, amen. And think about, you and I are both case studies in alienation, even just technically speaking here. You, unlike me, moved around a bunch when you were little. By my count, it's like 5 or 6 different places before you left home.
I think we lived like 8 different places.
Okay,
my dad got moved a lot in his work, and
so my dad got moved once. We moved from New Orleans to Baton Rouge when I was 10, thereabouts. And that was unsettling and all that,
Mhm.
like whatever, what one recovers. But neither of us live remotely close to where our roots were first watered.
Nope.
Gosh, it just occurred to me, Steve, you've probably lived in like 30 different homes.
Oh my gosh, at least. I mean, I've moved at least 20 times during my marriage.
That's what I'm saying.
One of my biggest things that I've just always wanted is just one place.
Yeah, stop. Let me live in an old house and stay there for a really long time.
Yeah.
But we really are the, again, I know in history, I don't want to overstate this, but I think of like my parents' generation. My parents are a generation older than yours.
Mm-hmm.
They're technically war babies. I think your mom and dad are boomers.
My dad is 74 and my mom is 68. I think.
So they're they're prime boomers.
Yeah.
My mom, they're in their 80s, so they're war babies. They were born during the war. But and my mom, was born in New Orleans. My dad was born in New Orleans. They went to school in New Orleans, went to high school in New Orleans, went to college in New Orleans, and then set up home and lived in New Orleans until I was 10. And it was pretty weird for us to do that. Right. And the expectation was like, your kids would do the same thing, and you might live in a parish over, but you're in the same basic locale, and you're going to sort of do you think, well, in our lifetimes, I mean, Gen X in particular, it's weird. In fact, if you grow up where you're born and you stay where you're born. Now, certain places have maintained that, but
it's rare.
It's rare now.
One of my good friends from high school and college has older parents. One of his dad is now deceased. They're significantly older than my parents.
Yeah.
And they grew up in, a small town in Idaho.
Yeah.
And they knew each other their whole lives.
Yeah.
Like his mom and his dad kind of knew each other because they grew up in a small town, and she was the doctor's daughter and he was this guy. And it was like they grew up, they got married, and then lived in the same part of Idaho for their entire lives. And that was something that was just so mystical to me almost, because it's like, how does that even happen?
Right.
And there's this breakdown, though, of the fabric of a functional society that drives a lot of this
100%.
stuff. Because it's like, we probably would have stayed in Virginia forever once we found that and established that as our kind of homestead.
Yeah.
Except we couldn't find schools that we liked for the kids. We struggled to find a parish that was anywhere near us. Like, there were all these different things that would happen. And it was like, well, you don't have the support structure. Most people do not have the support of extended family for childcare and things like that. I mean, you're kind of going through everything alone.
Yeah, that's what
I
we
mean,
did.
we never had babysitters.
Yeah.
We never had the ability to go out on dates and things
Yeah.
like that until our kids got old enough to start watching the younger kids.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Even when we lived in the same, general geographic area, it's like, well, your parents are still working and they're still doing all this stuff. And so it's, I don't know.
And we've just radically under-indexed the cost of that, and like, this is the same kind of thing that fuels right-coded populism and left-coded populism, right? It's like, I remember, famously, Kevin Williamson at the time was writing for National Review, and I think he works for the Bulwark, maybe.
I don't know. I recognize the name. I'm not sure.
Anyway, he was
now.
sort of like a hotshot conservative guy. He's really a libertarian, basically. But he famously said, "Oh, you poor babies who live in the Rust Belt, you can't live where, just move." And
I was actually just going to bring up the Rust Belt because it is such a the exodus from there is incredible.
But remember, the exodus is artificial. I don't mean that I blame people for leaving. They had to leave to put food on the table.
But it's downstream of policy.
That's right. Exactly. It's exactly right.
It's
downstream of modernity is really kind of the argument I'm trying to make here.
Yeah. I mean, I went to Franciscan University of Steubenville, which is, in Steel Town, Ohio, right? Steubenville was a steel town. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, grew up in West Virginia. I forget the town that she's originally from, but she moved to Follinsby, West Virginia, because she actually had a master's in English. She was an English teacher. And Follinsby is right across the river. You can see it from campus in Steubenville. It's like, because you're right at the intersection of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio at that spot. And she said that when she was young, like, Steubenville was the new Chicago. Everybody was going there. The steel was booming, and like you go down through the city. I mean, it's destroyed now, but the houses were gorgeous once upon a time. Like just beautiful, ornate homes. You know.
Yeah, the fluidity of modernity. You know, the social fluidity. And of course, this is all aided and abetted by technology, by the car.
It was globalism that killed the steel industry. It was like China made steel cheaper, so we're just not going to make it here anymore.
Yeah. It's just this mass disruption. So again, if you think about the film, the Trojan War is just this mass disruptive force that has ripple effects that is affecting generations,
Yeah, where I grew up in Binghamton, New York, there was a lot of tech and defense industry jobs there. Like IBM had a massive facility. Two of my uncles worked for IBM for their entire careers, after they got back from their military service. And I just remember as a kid, like my dad always got the newspaper because that was what you did in the 80s and 90s. And the newspaper was just constantly front page stories about IBM cuts another 1,500 jobs. Like that was just a steady drumbeat until I don't even know what's left. Before Lockheed Martin, it was Martin Marietta for us. Like they I'm pretty sure closed down. There is still a Lockheed facility there. There were several defense industry places that just went away. Why? Because New York has crazy taxes and the companies all end up leaving.
Yeah.
And so now I haven't been back to Binghamton since 2014 when my brother got married. But it's like, from the people I know who live there, I mean, it's awful. Like, it's a lot of people that get pushed out of New York City, end up moving upstate into these they're gentrifying. And so then they come up and they bring the drugs, and it just becomes criminal. And it's like, I don't know, man, you can't go home again. And there's this word that I have been in love with for years. It's a Welsh word. It's called hiraeth. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. It's Hiraeth. And it has no direct English translation, but it means a deep melancholic yearning for a home, time, or place that is irretrievably lost or may never have actually existed at all. It blends homesickness, intense nostalgia, and profound grief for an idealized past or a displaced homeland. How freaking perfect is that word?
And again, that's the power of Odysseus's story, right? Is to see the return, the revenge, and the restoration. And that's why it's so that's why it's so epic, right? That's why it's so mythic, because we get to see a restoration. Interesting that they kind of dodged that in the film, but fine. But that's the power. I said earlier that Homer is Lindy. And I think the power of that story, it's not the Trojan War. It's not even just Odysseus, the character, but it's the fact that he would move heaven and earth to get back to restore the family, like the good of that. It's just so potent, and to see it,
and it's so antithetical to modernity, as you've been saying.
Right.
I mean, and at least Odysseus has a home to try to get to.
That's right. Right.
Like we're maybe more like Aeneas, right? Where we don't get to go home. It's destroyed. So we've got to go somewhere else and try to start anew, and it's never going to be the same.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a bummer. Jeez.
It's a total bummer.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the solution is. I do think it's what gives strength to things like the populist support of Trump's anti-globalism largely comes from this feeling of being this diaspora of displaced people who never get to go home again.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why? Well, because other countries made stuff cheaper than us and all of our business went away and we couldn't afford to live. So we had to go somewhere that we weren't from.
But again,
far away from our parents.
Those are
and
choices.
Siblings.
Those are choices. Those are policy realities. And yeah, it's like globalism is great if you're in the asset class. It sucks if you're in the wage class. It sucks bigly, right? And look, in my dark days, which are many, I must confess.
Kale, do you have any Irish in you?
Just a wee bit. No, but I don't think there is a return. Really, like if you really poke me on this one, barring some kind of like meta catastrophe, where there really is a kind of reset of the baseline.
Yeah, I think there are lost generations. I think that it is possible in the future for the baseline to be reestablished, but for people like us, like no.
Yeah.
We don't get to go home. We don't get to have that connection. My immediate family, my family of origin, as they call it now, is dispersed all over the place. And, we have our own conflicts, but it's like I have two siblings that live, I have one that lives in West Virginia, one that lives in Virginia, one that lives in Spokane, another one that lives in South Carolina. Like nobody lives anywhere near each other. We don't see each other.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's like that for a lot of people. You're just blown to the wind. You either meet somebody in college and then you end up moving to where they're from.
Yeah, right.
And then my one brother lives back in upstate New York. He married a girl from our hometown when he was in Virginia, and he moved back up there because she wanted to be close to her family.
Right.
But we don't have family up there anymore. So it's like, it's just really, really weird. My parents live in Virginia. I now live in North Carolina. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But we follow jobs, we follow opportunities, we go where our spouses are from, we do whatever we have to do. And then we wonder why life is so hard because we don't have a community anymore.
Yeah, there's no extended family structures that have any kind of reality, binding, And look, we traded this. I mean, if you'd have asked me, when I was a teenager in the 90s, I'd have been like, yeah, like I get to go wherever I want. I just, what did I know?
Yeah.
I didn't
It was
know.
exciting. It was exciting. I mean,
Right.
And the thing is like the world became smaller because you could get on an airplane and go anywhere.
Totally.
Like think about how recent that is.
It was cheap. It was cheap. Yeah. No, it's that's what I mean. It's like this, it's just total ignorance of possible downsides in the spirit of autonomy, and maybe that's one of the underlying pillars of the myth is autonomy. Autonomy is one of those things that sounds really cool when you're like 16 and you're like beefing with your parents and you want a car, but
dude,
man,
I moved away from home when I was 17.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly.
And I told my parents, I'm going to Texas. I'm going to this school. You don't have to pay tuition. I got it taken care of by somebody. I was like, I want your blessing, but I'm going to be 18 in 3 months and I'm going either way.
Doing it anyway.
And that was what I did. Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's exactly what you're talking about is like, I am going to go make my own life. I am sick of living in this little nowhere town where there's nothing to do. Yeah. I'm going to Dallas, baby. Let's go.
Right. And boy, now at like 53, autonomy, this sounds like garbage.
No, I want to go hang out with Calypso.
Right.
I want stuff to be taken care of. I don't want to have to worry about it. I just want to stay in one place and and just live a life that makes sense and have people around. And that's the thing I think that really, I mean, for me personally, what hit me hardest about that movie is I'm like, as much suffering as he went through, he had a home to go back to.
Yeah.
That not being the case for so many of us is brutal. It is brutal.
Yeah.
There's no answer to that.
Yeah. The whole domicide thing, it's not even just about the nuclear family, which many of us experience, but it's the it's the murder of the household. You know, that kind of larger sense of the household, and it's been murdered. And some of it's been self-inflicted, but a lot of it, as you say, has been the sort of these larger forces. It's like, you know, you remember Edmund in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, you know, and she and the White Queen, the White Witch, you know, basically woos him with a plate of Turkish delight,
which is disgusting.
I know we've all made that. It's like, but you know, but I think there's something to it, right? It's like Turkish delight is trash, right? And we have exchanged the bonds, these things that bind us together. We exchange for something as frivolous and crappy as Turkish delight, you know.
So I had a thought when I was watching the movie last night, and I'm going to play a little bit to the comments on one of our recent episodes where somebody said, somehow in the last hour, you guys always return to enchantment, right? I was really struck by that moment where he goes off on the raft with the words of Calypso in his mind of like, you have to just accept your punishment and abandon yourself basically to the gods, right?
Right.
That's what I feel like this is driving us to. Like, it's driving us to a kind of re-enchantment because we're literally going, I don't know what God is doing. I don't understand why the world is so broken, so fractured, why our families are so messed up, why all these things that have happened.
Yeah.
But it's like, if abandoning myself to you, I mean, kind of go back to what we were talking about at the beginning, like, tell me what to do and I'll freaking do it, right? If abandoning myself to you, even through the suffering, is going to get me to where I need to go, I will take it, because I don't want to be in charge of this life anymore, because I've had way too much autonomy and I'm drunk on it and I don't want it.
Yeah, it's like, what is the old meme, you know, Jesus take the wheel. You know, like but
don't let them merge.
Right.
But yes.
Right. I mean, and yeah, but man, like, I don't know. Yeah, that's hard. God, it's hard. It's hard because it's just so bloody unclear.
I mean, the suffering is already part of the fabric of everyday life for most of us.
Right.
So it's like, well, if it could be worth something, that would be nice.
Yeah.
Like, if that's the cost 100%. Of admission to something worthwhile, okay.
Yeah.
But don't tell me that this is for nothing.
Right. Yeah, and to me, you know, my personal draw to the story is, you know, the shouldered suffering, you know, the taken, like, I'm taking this on, you know, what is it, Peterson's line, you know, shouldering the burden of being itself. You know, if it means something, you could do anything. You know, like, you know, you could do anything.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's why, and some people mocked me for it, and they can go do something anatomically impossible to themselves. But that's why I said this movie surprised me by feeling like it was a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
Because it really kind of reoriented me, because this is the question I ask all the time.
Yeah.
What is this suffering for?
Yeah.
And I've discussed with you a little bit, and I've written about it some, but like, you know, a couple of years ago, 2 summers ago, I noticed this proliferation of dragonflies around wherever I was going, right? And it was this funny little thing, but, you know, my wife at the time had been talking for a while about how, you know, in some cultures, butterflies are seen as kind of indicators that change is coming. If you keep having them crossing your path, it means like change is coming.
I walked across
whatever.
I walked across a dead one 3 days ago.
Oh, well, I don't want to tell you what that means.
I know, yeah, okay.
Are you good with Hades? No. But anyway, so, you know, I was like, okay, well, what is the symbolism, you know, culturally around dragonflies? And they're actually seen somewhat similarly, except for they are seen as harbingers of personal metamorphosis. And I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Dragonfly. Okay,
dragonflies, yeah. So like, obviously you're going to see insects, they exist in the world, whatever, but sometimes it seems really personal, right? And that was what was happening is they were flying up to me. They were like right in my face, hovering, looking at me, and then they would take off. Or I would be sitting at a stoplight in a car and one would zoom around and then turn and like right in front of the windshield and look at me. And I was like, that's weird, right?
And there's such cool insects too. Like
I've loved them since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I used to sit by my uncle's pond and just watch them because they were just amazing. But anyway, I hadn't really seen them in years, and then they started showing up.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, cool. Well, I'm in the middle of all this stupid deconstruction and trying to heal from childhood crap and everything like that. I'm like, maybe it's just kind of a little push in the right direction of like, life, you're on the right track, right? And then what I didn't know is that within 6 months, I was going to basically be told that, my marriage was over.
Yeah.
And so that's been going on and on and on, right? But what's interesting is that they coincide with moments of profound grief. And then recently, they have begun coinciding with moments of profound insight about myself or the work that I'm meant to do. I mean, for 6 years since 5 years since I've walked away from 1 Peter 5, but 6 years since I first started thinking about it, I've been thinking, what is the next thing that I'm supposed to be doing? Because I'm not somebody who's just like, I'll just go get a job and I'll just do whatever, because that doesn't last. Like, I'm a guy who's mission driven, right?
You're also just not hireable.
No, I'm totally
for
not
obvious
hireable.
reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. I spent way too long doing the wrong kinds of things that are forever on the internet.
Right.
And I don't mean OnlyFans. So,
would have been more lucrative. Anyway, go ahead.
Probably, yeah, it would have. But so I've begun to see them again frequently, and like so frequently and so specifically that I'm like, that's just weird. Like, I know I'm reading into this too much.
Like, they're coming at you. They're coming at you.
Coming at me. Yeah. Like last night, I was loading groceries into my car at a parking lot, big concrete structure. And this one comes out of nowhere and just like stops. And I'm like, why are you even here? There's no plants here. There's nothing. Like, there's nowhere for you to hunt. You're just in the middle of this concrete parking garage, And then a few minutes later, I'm downtown, and then another one comes up to me, boom, like right in front of the car. And then a half an hour later, I'm like thinking about something really heavy, and I get out of the car to make a delivery, and there's one right over my head, just sitting there. I mean, I actually got a photo of it, which is really hard to do with your phone, to a flying insect, right?
Yeah.
So what I have kind of heard in the back of my mind, I had one race me down the street the other night. That one was fun. I was driving, and it was just driving. It was like right alongside my window, right? It's just weird.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's weird. And the feeling that I keep getting because of the context of what I'm thinking about or what I'm doing at any particular moment where they're showing up, and it's never just random. Like, it's never just when I'm just singing a song, or listening to the radio. It's like I'm grinding through something big, and then it's like, boom.
Yeah.
There's something for you on the other end of this road, and you can't see it, and the road is hard, but keep going. That's that feeling. It's like they're the messengers of the gods.
Yeah.
Just not giving me the story, not telling me what it's for.
Right.
But just saying, don't stop, keep going. And it's this really weird thing because it's such an absurd thing to put faith in, but it has given me a measure of hope that I didn't have. And it's really interesting to me. So I had that in mind last night when I went to go see this movie, and I'd already been thinking about that a lot. And then I go see this movie, and it's like, that's kind of his whole story, is like he doesn't know what's going to happen next, but he keeps being told, keep going. He gets these prophecies.
Keep going.
Go to the next place. You're going to find supplies on the next land. Oh, a bad thing happened. Don't worry. Keep going.
Right.
Like things are going to crap all around him, but he trusts that message, and he finally gets home.
Yeah,
that's really, it's just interesting.
Yeah. It's beautiful. But less folks in the audience think that you and I are being Pollyanna about this. It's like, but that suffering is real.
Oh, it's and that suffering is trying to kill me every day.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's like, but that's why it feels so important to me to have just a little hint. And I actually think what's most important about them is that they don't tell me what it means. Like, that thought in my head is my interpretation of what it means, but it's that vague. It's just keep going through the shit because there's something worth it on the other side. could be totally a subjective interpretation, but I kind of love the fact that they're not saying, hey, if you do X, Y, and Z, they're not whispering in my ear with their little buzzy voices telling me what's going to come. It's not Athena appearing to me or the prophecy of the shades. It's something a lot less specific, but it's persistent in a way that nudges me forward. And that's interesting to me.
So what's interesting to me is like maybe I have my own versions of dragonflies that are flying all around me and I'm just not paying attention.
Yeah. Well, what's weird is that's very likely. Yeah. They got my attention.
Yeah.
Just because I notice patterns, and when a pattern starts to feel improbable, then I stop and I'm like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
Like, I expect to see insects in the summertime. It's normal.
Right.
But there just comes a point where it's like, it's so targeted and it's so up close and it's so like, what is happening?
Well, I think, it's like, I feel like there are a couple of Hopkins poems that come to mind, the world is charged with God's grandeur, and it's like, we don't get Athena popping up to us, but we get these visitations, we get this falling of light, the dappled leaves, the dragonflies, and not to make this sort of overly pedestrian, but I think one of the things that inspires, somebody like a Tolkien, and even a Lewis, but especially Tolkien, is that when we lose our embodied connection to the world, we lose ourselves, right? You can, and not only that, but we lose our capacity. We exchange our capacity to be moved by the dragonflies in our life because we've got an app for that, right? We've made all these exchanges. There's a great poem from Wordsworth called "The World Is Too Much With Us." The world is too much with us. Getting and spending, late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. What a sordid boon. And basically it's like we spend all of our days, being on time or being late, spending things on this, acquiring this, and all these kinds of things, living in a spreadsheet. And we've exchanged our ability to see Triton blowing his horn in the water.
Yes. This was a big theme in my most recent Substack post. It's called The Coming of the Rains. I can link to it. But it was about how I just keep thinking you have to slow down.
Yeah.
You have to start noticing things again. Like there's this grind in life, especially, financially, like you're just working because you just gotta. And I work pretty much all the time, and a lot of it is doing stuff I don't want to do.
Yeah.
And it's like I try to maximize it by using it for fuel for writing and for all these things. But like every once in a while, I'll just slip into a gear. Like I took this order the other day that I wasn't really paying attention, because the way that the orders work is it's very competitive, and it's like a marketplace, and all the drivers get kind of the same order at the same time. And if it's a good one with a good tip, everybody's like, boom.
Click on you.
Right. And so if you click on it too fast before you've ingested all the data, this many items, many customers, this many miles, sometimes you take a stinker, right?
Yeah, of course.
And the company does this thing where they'll bundle a really good order with a really crappy one, so that people won't take the crappy one. And so I got this order. It was gonna pay me $40, right? And the main order was 3 miles from the store, which I didn't know when I took it because they don't show you that. And the second order was almost 40 miles away.
Jeez.
And it was just one little bag of groceries, right? And it was 40 miles to nowhere. Like,
yeah.
It was up past Henderson, North Carolina. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
And I'm driving up there, and I'm kind of pissed at the bait and switch thing. And
totally.
But then these storms start moving in, and it's beautiful. And then I'm out in the countryside and everything. And I'm like, no, you know what? I'm really glad I took this order, because I'm going for this gorgeous drive.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid to take it. I'm not going to make as much today as I thought I was going to, because this is going to eat up 2 hours. But it was one of the most beautiful drives I've ever taken.
Yeah.
The storm was crazier than any. I mean, I could not see out my windshield for part of the drive. Like, all this stuff was happening. I got some great photos out of it and everything. And I was like, you just got to slow down. This isn't just like a crappy like work thing. This is a mini adventure. You just have to look at it the right way.
Yeah. And I do, like, you look, and I know I'm a poetry nerd, but I do think that this is the kind of thing that poetry forms us to be able to apprehend.
Yes. Yeah.
So I called up the poem. I got to read it to you because it's too good.
Please do.
It's too good. The world is too much with us, late and soon, getting and spending, we lay waste our powers. Little we see in nature that is ours. We have given our hearts away, a sordid boon. This sea that bears her bosom to the moon, the winds that will be howling at all hours, and are upgathered now like sleeping flowers. For this, for everything, we are out of tune. It moves us not. Great God, I'd rather be a pagan, suckled in a creed outworn. So might I, standing on this pleasant lea, have glimpses that would make me less forlorn. Have sight of Proteus rising from the sea, or hear old Triton blow his wreathed horn.
Dude.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm talking about.
That's right.
There is magic in the world, and we are just here.
Yeah.
We're not seeing it anymore. And so you've got to put your screens away. I'm not saying always, like, we live in a modern world. Like, this is, we're doing this on a screen, right? We're having a very meaningful conversation by means of screens.
Right.
But go out and like experience the world. Slow down. Stop and take that photograph of the sunset instead of being like, I got to be somewhere. Like, it's going to take you 5 minutes and you're going to have that forever.
Yeah. I feel that, like that constant nagging, like, gotta get there. And,
we're always optimizing because we have this nagging guilt of, like, if you don't optimize, bad things are going to happen. Because you feel like you can never get ahead anyway. And so you're just trying to squeeze all the value out of every day.
And,
but you're missing what's actually valuable.
That's right. And, and I think this is one of those things where I think religion can get a bad rap because, and look, there are clearly forms of religion that are warping in terms of guilt and anxiety and all this sort of stuff. So I don't mean it that way exactly, but there's plenty of that to go around. It's like, just listen to, a YouTube video, 20-minute YouTube video at 1.5 times speed on life hacking and optimization. And you recognize that there's this constant drive to dehumanize us. And we willingly give ourselves over to this constant, gotta be more, gotta do more. It's like, whoa. And,
I never wanted that. I never signed up for that.
No.
And if that's what I got to do, then screw it. What's the point? Like, I don't know. I mean, we're not ancient, but I don't know how many decades we've got left.
Yeah, I know.
And I don't want to spend it all on a hamster wheel. There's so much that we miss. And when you open your eyes and you look for it, all of a sudden you're like, wow, treasure.
Yeah.
Like, it's everywhere.
Yeah. And
that's why I thought that line was really interesting, that I'd rather be a pagan, because pagan religion was so dialed into nature.
Right. Suckled in a creed outworn. Yeah.
Man,
to be able to feel that kind of enchantment, and the divinity of the world, right?
Right. And I mean, honestly, I've often said, and this is not going to be popular, with a certain number of people, but, like, I actually understand the Greek gods more than I understand sometimes the God that I was raised to believe in, because they're bastards, and I get it when they act like it.
Yeah. Their caprice is stunningly relatable.
I expect them to be dicks to humans, because that's kind of their MO. They're just really powerful, petty, people. They're just people to the grandiose exaggeration of their flaws.
They're dialed up to 11.
But when you have a God who is supposed to be the perfect embodiment of love and goodness and all that stuff, and then, he still throws all this crap at you, you're like, you too?
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to be the guy that, like, makes sense to me. You're supposed to be the guy that I know what to expect because I was told to look at you like a loving father. So why are you crushing me, dude?
Yeah.
Knock it off, man.
Yeah.
And so there's this intelligibility to that I really appreciate, because it's like, you know what you're getting with Zeus and with Odin.
Yeah, there's a concreteness to it that, which is why I think it's so easy to turn God, into an abstraction. For me, just like reading or I try to go to daily mass, and, you just hear like a little, whatever, like, what is it? Like the reading is usually like a couple of verses or something like that. Just like hearing this story, like this guy walking around, and drawing in the sand or telling stories. It's like, I get I get theology, I understand what it is and what it's for, but not if it's going to displace like the concrete real, and it's so easy, especially in our world. It's so easy to just abstract everything, right? That it's idea, and ideas are not warm and fuzzy, right? I mean, ideas can't give you a hug.
No, they cannot.
And I think anything that we can do to sort of re-embody ourselves, either through poetry or stories, or just taking a walk, like literally just taking a walk with nowhere to go, even if it's just, for a few minutes, it's like, it sounds so trite and cliche, but it's oddly restorative, to be able to spend some small chunk of time not counting time,
Yeah, my favorite orders now are the ones that take me out to the country.
Just go. Yeah.
Because I'll stop and it's like there's a tobacco field for as far as you can see under a cloudy sky, or there's some gigantic oak tree that looks like it's been there for 5,000 years. Yeah. Or there's some old farmhouse that's collapsed in on itself and it's covered in kudzu.
I love that stuff.
These remnants of a different time, and it pulls you out of the thing that modernity kind of is, like, with all of its weird little structures and falsities, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man, because I'm like, I love cities, but I also I need to get away from them.
Yeah.
I want magic back.
Yeah, I don't love cities. I like towns. I like, I like city, but I like people. But even like, I remember reading this passage in Milton a couple of years ago, and he lived in London at a time where you had a built up portion of London, but everybody lived within like a 10-minute walk, being out in the fields, even in London, even in 1650 or whatever. And when he's a middle-aged guy, or young man, it's like we don't live in that world,
especially not in America. Like, not everything here is designed around automobile infrastructure.
And we live on the clock. All of us live on the clock. It's like, gotta be here, gotta do that. I mean, even this, it's so funny. Like, it's like the only schedule that you and I have is like, okay, Wednesday-ish, evening-ish.
Right.
And like, sometimes even that's like, oh shit, I gotta, and again, it's not because I don't like to have these conversations, but it's like, okay, I need to like block off this time, and then I have
we're doing our personal equivalent of the animal sacrifice so that we can talk to the shades.
Yeah. That's
like,
right.
We're literally sacrificing time that we can't afford to sacrifice because we have so many other obligations.
Yeah.
Because there's something really important we need to unearth.
The sacrifice of podcasting. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, not to be grandiose.
Yes, but.
Anyway,
Well, speaking of which,
I think we have exhausted our time of sacrifice.
So anyway, I'll just we always forget to do this, but please hit like and subscribe if you've lasted.
Yeah, if you're
long.
still here, you're probably already subscribed.
Yeah.
But
This is true. This is true.
We need to get better about doing that in the beginning.
But I do think watching the film is worth your time. Go check it out. You know, it's a good story. It's a good story.
That's okay too. But we're not saying you have to,
right?
But we're also saying it's probably worth figuring out.
It's worth figuring out. Yeah. All right, man. Be well.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.